Everybody good? Dr. Shaw, you good? Dr. Shaw, you good? Johnny? Penny? Okay, I call this meeting of the Red Oak Independent School District to order at 7 p.m. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, the notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. All board members are present at this time. We will now open with a invocation of Mr. Knight.
Father, just thank you for allowing us to gather like this tonight, Father, to discuss school business, Father, that, Father, we know you watch over as well. And Father, we thank you for that. But as decisions are made, concerning all the things that's going on in the world, Father, we just thank you for being with us. And I just ask that you be with our teachers, Father, as they prepare back, and Father, all the workers, that work in the district, and all our administrators. Father, just thank you for hearing us and just let us make wise decisions. In our Lord Jesus' name, amen.
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 At this time, I ask you to stand and share with us as Ms. Peterson helps us honor the flags.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into our superintendent's report. We have the career technology pathway class changes. Ms.
Yes.
Sanford.
What we're looking at is the CTE department wants to change the education pathway for child development to human growth and development. And this change is due to a recent TEA release of approved courses for educational pathways. And it will be applied so that the Red Oak High School students will be eligible to gain an Education Aid 1 certification. So if we change this, it would allow them to obtain that certification upon completion. This is a class that was offered in previous course offerings, and it's still included in the course master at the high school. So it's not going to be like an additional, it's already listed in the course master. The CTE department plans to change one of the human service pathway classes from lifetime nutrition and wellness to dollars and cents. And the reason they're changing this is due to COVID situation, because it eliminates the compliance concerns of the student being able to comply with safety protocol. So that's what they're asking for.
You don't have that for an action item tonight. You just bring that information, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Next, we have the CARES Act funding update with Dr. Johnston.
Good evening. I just, last time we together, we talked about the devices that we were purchasing and we referenced the CARES Act. Thought it would be a good idea to just give you all a little more information as to what the impact of the CARES Act is for the school district. And what we have, again, the CARES Act was approved March 27th. The goal is to provide fast and direct economic assistance for not just school districts, but all workers, families, small businesses to try to preserve jobs. It also included an education stabilization fund to provide grants to K-12. And since it's federal funds, it's going to kind of follow, I'm going to show you that in a minute, the Title I guidelines of how you go about applying and receiving funds. Each state determines their own. And there's really 4 components, actually 3 components. Elementary and secondary school education relief fund, ESSER, coronavirus relief fund, CRF, governor's emergency education relief fund, GEAR, and some dollars from those 3 have been gone into something called Operation Connectivity. And then there's also the other disaster funding, which is a federal program, FEMA. And the ESSER, again, the goal was to hold school districts harmless from losing funds due to the lack of in-school education in the last quarter of this last year. What they will do is, again, the federal government will give this funds to states. States have the ability to determine how they're going to allocate those funds. Essentially what Texas has done is says, we're going to reduce your state funding for the last quarter, but we're going to offset it with this ESSER fund. So they're going to reduce our state funding by 95% of the amount we get. And the amount we're going to get was determined off of Title I, the allocation that we received in this school year, 1920. Then the remaining 5% will be provided to districts for equitable services for private nonprofit schools. And that's the same concept as Title I. And because these are federal funds, they're using the same guidelines for this. What they're essentially, we're going to get around $384,000 is what is the Title I allocation. So what they're going to do is they're going to, since we really only had school for 6 weeks, we didn't have the last 2 6 weeks, they're going to look at the prior year and compare the first 4 or 6 weeks average to the end of the school year average. Again, the end of the school year is all the 6 weeks averaged together. And for Red Oak, we essentially had an increase in our ADA in the 18-19 school year from the first 4 to the total. Typically, you would think as you get closer to the end of the school, you might have a reduction of ADA, but in our situation, we actually had an increase, which is positive and good for us. And then what they'll do is they'll reduce the final ADA because of the funding formula takes average daily attendance times that 6160, and that's an allocation. So they'll reduce our ADA to make up for that $380,000. And we're gonna have to allocate $19,000 to the private nonprofit schools so it's really the 5% we get, they're only gonna reduce the 95% of the 384. Again, they're saying you can expend these dollars from March, when the pandemic hit, through September 2022. Since they're federal funds, again, they want you to follow the same process, which you have to submit an application, you have to do quarterly reporting. We heard late last week that quarterly is going to go away. It's going to be an annual reporting instead of quarterly, because I think that had some school districts concerned about having to, if you're spending money next or this school year, every quarter doing it. Then what they'll do is TA will take all the school districts' reports and then they'll submit that to the federal government for reimbursement. We can decide how we can spend the money. We can either spend it for the last quarter of 1920, or you can spend it for this 2021 school year. We made the decision internally that since we're losing the money from state money for the 1920 school year, we want to make it up with this funds. So we've identified staffing that would be eligible for it, that were paid March, April, and May, and we've submitted the application to be reimbursed for 1920, not the future, not 2021. We submitted on June 25th, and we received word that it's been accepted. We had to make one little caveat because they changed how you go about determining the private nonprofit at the last minute, so Nancy made that submission, I believe, today to correct that. So now what are equitable services? Equitable services, we only have one school, Ovilla Christian School. Essentially what, under Title I, you take all the low-income students from that campus and you factor them into your school district's low income, and that's how you get the funding from Title I. So you're essentially getting Title I funding from this private nonprofit school's Title I students. So the federal regulations say then you have to allocate services, provide services. You might purchase additional materials for their students that are low income, or you might do some training for the teachers that are teaching those low income students. So the same concept is holding true with this ESSER funding. And we've determined that we only 4.197% of our funding will go to that private nonprofit school. Again, they set aside 5%. So good, it's less. I mean, we wouldn't want it to be 10%, it has to go to the campus. For the private school, we only get 5% of the funding. Again, we don't provide them funds or reimburse them, we provide them services. And part of the process is, and we've contracted with Region 10 to go out there and set an agreement with them. Region 10 works with our Title I schools, so it's a similar same process, so they're doing it for us. In services, we can provide counseling, professional development for teachers, or other instructional service or materials that would improve the academic. Again, the exception is where is with Title I, it's just for the low-income students. For this program, it's all students. So any needs that they have for all of their students to help make up for what was lost in the spring, then we can provide those services from an educational perspective. Now the CRF. Again, basically this is similar to FEMA, except it's part of the CARES Act as opposed to FEMA. And it's for any obligations that are made prior to May 20th. So it's from sometime in March through May 20th. Things that we needed to provide to help us get through the pandemic at the time. Again, you do it through the Texas Division of Emergency Management, which is the same entity you would use for FEMA. And that same thing, like FEMA, reimburse 75% of the COVID expenses. What you can't do though is apply to FEMA and only get 75% reimbursement and then try to apply the other 25% to this program. They're separate services. And again, they're providing, here's in the first bullet there, some guidelines, is things that weren't budgeted for. So again, with the pandemic, nobody really budgeted, so you can't get reimbursement for something you were planning to purchase through that budget process anyway. So that's all that is saying, is that it's for above and beyond. It'll be capped at $50,000 or $250 per compensatory education students, which are viewed as the low-income students. And for us, we have roughly 2,900 low-income students from the 1920 school year, so that would be 726,000. So instead, I mean, we would, if we had the expenses, 726,000 would be reimbursed to us. Now it's the maximum of the 726 or the 50,000, or the greater of. And we're still waiting to hear how the process is going to work. We're supposed to have heard sometime in July. July is almost over, of the application process, but you do have to have the application submitted by September 15th. And then what will happen is, once all the applications are submitted and all the expenses submitted, the state will consolidate all that and more than likely probably prorate, because they have a set dollar amount that they're getting, they have set aside for this, and prorate districts back the amount of money that they submitted. And again, it's expenses to facilitate distance learning, staff cost to develop online learning capabilities, and premium pay expenses, which we had a policy in place before the disaster. So if we had premium that we paid additional individuals, that would be reimbursed too. Now there's the other one, the gear. And again, there's not a lot of information out on this. The one thing I will have found is that it appears that the portion of these funds will be used for remote learning, online instructional materials. There's something called Texas Home Learning. And they say they may also do some dyslexia intervention services, but a lot of this information has not been come out. Another thing is they're saying maybe it's going to have to provide services to private nonprofit too. Have not really seen any guidelines on that. The only thing that I am aware of is the remote learning. They're gonna use some of these funds for remote learning. And that's what we have next is, again, it's a partnership between the governor, Dallas ISD, and TA. And the goal is to try to ensure that all students have knowing that we're probably gonna have remote learning, that all students have devices that help facilitate them with the remote learning. And they indicated that about 17% of Texas students lack the high-speed internet or devices, 30% devices. So that's the purpose. The goal is to try to make up and minimize and reduce those. What the state has done, they've gone out and found devices. So they have a set price, and they offer devices, laptops, Chromebooks, as well as hotspots. So they've already secured the pricing. Then what they have said, that the districts can participate in 2 different ways. If you haven't purchased anything, we, the state, are gonna do a bulk order, so tell us what you need, and we'll include it with our order to the vendors that we've already identified. Or, knowing that some districts may have already gone out and purchased things like we did, you can be reimbursed. And so there's the 2 components. Again, and they'll pay for 50%, the state will match 50% of the cost that a district encounters. The only exception is the bulk order, they'll only match it for 1 year. So a device probably would be paid at 100%, but if a district got a hotspot, it's more of an annual cost, and the state's only gonna pay for that for the first year. Then either the district would not cancel the contract or have to pay for that themselves. And again, on the reimbursement, items purchased between May 21st and July 22nd will be covered. There's also another component which I didn't address here because it's more confusing too, is local and counties are eligible for some CRF funding, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. If we can secure that from the county or the city, then that will help offset some of these costs as well. So the state has said, if those dollars are available, school district ought to be able to take advantage of that. We had to complete a survey to identify the needs. So basically the survey said, how many laptops do you need, from what vendor or what make? HP, Dell, Lenovo, something like that. How many Chromebooks, and which vendor? Again, that's to help maybe coincide with what you already have on campus. And that same thing with hotspots. We also included, Mike and I did the survey, and we also included every year, Mike had put together a plan of what needs to be replaced. Devices that are 4 to 5 years old need to be replaced. So in his budget for this year, he has devices that need to be replaced. So we included that as a bulk item in the survey that we submitted. And once the state, and again, that was due on the 19th, we submitted it the Friday the 17th. And then we're waiting to hear from the state. We're going to accumulate all this data to just see how much their bulk order or the reimbursement. Again, they probably have a set dollar amount to see how much of this can be paid for. We were supposed to get back from them, okay, just confirm that this is what you need, and then once we confirm that, then they'll submit the order, and with the goal of trying to get this by the start of school. Again, we're almost to the end of July here, so I don't know how quick the turnaround can be. And we're trying to make sure that the order that the board approved a couple weeks ago, we're trying to make sure we get that also by the time school starts as well. Now the last one, just FEMA. Those that have been around a while remember the tornadoes, so y'all are probably familiar with FEMA. Again, what FEMA is covering in this situation is just cleaning and sanitizing equipment of the facilities, hand sanitizers, any overtime related to the cleaning, as well as training. So it's very specific to sanitization and cleaning of buildings, not devices and other things. And so we've identified certain things, and we haven't submitted yet. We're still trying to accumulate some of those costs. Again, we'll get 75% reimbursement, which is better than nothing. We'll still have the 25% we owe. And again, apply through TDM, and we just need to make sure that we maintain the records for future use. So that's essentially all I had. Just wanted to give, that you might have heard through the press certain components of this. The one that we are very thankful for is the operation connectivity to help us, number one, get fully one-to-one, and number two, to help us fund those devices. So, I don't know if there's any questions.
I have a
Yeah, but
question.
I've got a question. On the bulk order, when we're talking about, the devices, the hotspots, are they going to allow us to do a 1-year contract? Or, okay. Okay.
Well, that would be, we did put in for some hotspots. From the survey that we've done, not a lot of our families don't need a hotspot. A lot of our families have most of them have internet, only a few may not. So that would be the only thing that would be subject to the 1 year, because the devices, we're gonna pay for all that up front.
Right.
So it might be a hotspot.
I'm just concerned that they're gonna lock us in for a 3-year or something.
The state has gone out there and told the vendors only 1 year. The guaranteed, we could continue that, but then the cost would be us if we go past the 1 year.
Hey, Dr. Johnson, the one where you were talking about, there was a part of it that would be that the city or the county would have to apply for? Is that what you said?
Well, like the school district is getting the coronavirus relief funds,
Mhm.
we would submit those claims for reimbursement. The city and counties have the ability to get those funds as well. And there may be things that the city and county need to be reimbursed because things that they've had to do as a result of the pandemic. If they have dollars that they're not going to use, we could piggyback on them to submit a claim to get some reimbursement.
Have we been talking to the city and the county
We're-
about that, or are we not at that point yet?
We haven't quite got to that point yet. We're just trying to get all the guidance.
Okay.
Figure out what the process is going to be.
Okay,
And this came about last couple of weeks too, is, again, originally thought it would just be 50-50, but if there's dollars available, we might as well take advantage of that to have the state reimburse that portion as well.
okay.
Dr. Shaw, you have anything?
Joy, you have any questions?
Well, thank you.
So for the services, who tracks the services we're supposed to provide to Old Villa Christian, for example?
Working with Region 10, before any funds are allocated to us from the state, we have to have an agreement with Old Villa saying what services are we going to provide to them.
Right.
And then that would be through the curriculum department, working with, Region 10 will document that
Oh,
part
okay,
of the
okay.
agreement. And then the curriculum department will ensure that those services are provided.
Okay. And for the connectivity, we approved the Chromebooks. How many hotspots are we looking?
We just put in for 100.
Okay. Is the Chromebooks, is that gonna cover us, or is there anything else we're looking at, do you know?
We're looking at iPads. Education Foundation is looking at doing some of that purchasing for us, but we are short on our iPads.
iPads, okay. Okay.
The technology department did analysis, and to get us one-to-one for Chromebooks, for the grades that would have Chromebooks,
Right.
we just needed that 2,000, which we came to the board a couple
Right,
weeks ago.
right,
and asked
okay.
for.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the return to school update. Multiple presenters, Ms. Sanford, Mr. Friels, Ms. Alera, Mr. Rogers.
I want to see Mr. Garcia, Fabian Garcia, our new middle school principal, is here, and I'm going to send to you before
Okay.
I got started. Just to come this way.
Will the audience be able to see the presentation? No. Okay.
I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to meet him, so I want y'all to have an opportunity. This is Fabian Garcia. He is coming to us as our new middle school principal, and he has 20-plus years of experience in education. Last 4 at Manor ISD as an assistant principal. We're so excited to have him on board. He has really jumped in and sat in on some of their meetings and giving a lot of great input and a lot of great knowledge. So I just want y'all to meet him. Do you want to say anything to him?
Thank you for bringing me on here at Red Oak ISD. It is an honor to be a principal here at Red Oak Middle School. I am at your disposal, and I am honored and humbled, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for bringing me on board.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you. I just wanted him to have an
Welcome to Red Oak.
Nice to meet you.
Fabian Garcia, nice to meet you all.
Nice to
meet you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
Already heard some good things about you.
All right.
Great addition. Great addition. Dr. Shaw, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
People are telling me they can't hear you. Whoever's speaking on that end, they can't hear.
I wonder if I need to get closer to this. Okay, well, let's try this way. I don't want to sit, but I'll turn the mic this way. This is a lengthy slide presentation. I'm not going to read it to you. You have a copy of it. It is going to be uploaded on our website. Do y'all mind if I take this off since I'm presenting?
Nope.
All right. So it's going to be on our website so that everyone will have an opportunity to download it and look at it. Got a lot of information. Like I said, I'm not going to be going over like UIL and things like that, but I wanted you to have that at your disposal. So let's look at our return to school. What I wanted to look at was the progression since COVID began in our area. So we're going to look at a kind of a progression of what did occur. In the spring, as you know, COVID hit while we were on spring break and the schools were shut down in Texas, and we offered virtual support and packets to finish out the school year. As we got to the end of the school year in May, we concluded knowing that student growth was in question. You know, how many kids had actually slid, we call it the slide, and regressed or did not grow, just stayed stagnant. So we know that that's something we needed to address. As June came along, the administrators started working diligently, listening to all of the many updates. We have updates from the city, the county, the governor, Texas Education Agency, and just trying to get everything together, UIL, and make sure that we're having everything going in the right direction. July, we continued. They advised us to make a task force. Well, we created our own task force with our cabinet, because that's the ones who actually do it anyway, and to segregate everything. So the cabinet is the task force, and we started working nonstop to develop plans offering quality instruction to the kids, but with a priority of safety as well. Now we're moving into looking at August. So what we're at the point of right now is offering options, suggestions, recommendations to the board as far as what we can do to stay within the guidelines that the state is giving us and the governor and local health authorities, but to offer that quality instruction to all students. Okay, so we want to look at what it's going to look like this fall versus spring, because as you all know, we do not want it to look like spring. Like I said, spring was more of a offering support. So the teachers in the spring, they offered the support to the students, but in the fall, they will actually be instructing. So that's a big difference in what TEA has said. We don't just want you to support them, we want you to actually instruct them. As far as the students are concerned, they were all virtual last spring. The grades were frozen. And so what they did during their virtual did not negatively impact. Now, it could have positively impacted because we did let kids make things up that they were missing, but no negative impact. Whereas the grades for the fall, if the student is virtual, it's going to be held to the same standard as the grades are for those in class. So if assignment is given to someone sitting face-to-face in a school setting, the same assignment will be given virtually, and those will be equitable grades. As far as the extracurricular, this is something that we're going to talk about. In the spring, there was no extracurricular offered to students, but there will, we hope to have some extracurricular this fall. And so pending board approval, then we would choose whether or not to allow those students. to participate in that extracurricular. We'll talk about that a little more here in a minute as well. Okay, mandates and guidelines. There are a lot. We have them that, of course, come down from the top, President Trump, and we have them that come down from Governor Abbott. We have the mandates that come down from Dr. Lee Nordstrom, who is our local health authority. We have them from Mike Morath, our Commissioner of Education at TEA. We have them from Judge Little, that comes down from the county, and also the cities within Red Oak ISD. And then we have them from UIL. So we have a lot of different mandates, a lot of different guidelines, and we try to accumulate all of those for the benefit of the kids while staying within those guidelines. Okay, this has become the word for us, fluid. Everything we do is fluid. It continually changes. And this little ripple effect is honestly how we are. We are just continually changing our plans based on what they say. I want to give you just a few examples. In the beginning, a lot of school districts came out with, let's do a hybrid, where kids come A day, B day. And the state said, absolutely not. If the kid's not in their seat or offered instruction 5 days a week, you do not get funded for that kid. That's what they told us, so everybody switched plans. Recent release is that an A-B hybrid is now allowed for only 9th through 12th for a period of 4 weeks. So that is something that we can look at, and then you can also look at going for an additional 4 weeks should the board want to do so. Okay, next thing they told us were packets are not considered instruction. So if you give a kid a packet, you do not get funding. Now, packets are counted. If the kid does not have Wi-Fi and you do choose to go virtual for those first 4 weeks or any portion of those weeks, then if you provide the packets and the teachers are actually offering that instruction and support, grading those, then that is counted for funding. Next, they told us if we did not offer in school from day one, you would not get the funding, that you had to at least offer it to some. Recently, they said you can have a soft launch, that now you can actually choose to go all virtual if you want to for those first 4 weeks, and then you can actually extend it for an additional 4 weeks if needed. And the last example is first we were told everyone would be required to wear a mask, and that was the specific terminology. Now they're saying 10 and older are required to wear a face covering. And we'll go into a definition that does include the shields and different things like that as well. Also, bus riders will be, no matter the age, will be required to wear those masks or those shields, and that's more of a protection because they're close quarters at that point. We can't social distance as much as we'd like to. Phases, I'm going to go through these real quickly. On the phases, we had first phase was the cabinet assumed the duties of related to their department. We continued that as the information was handed down and the mandates were looked at. Phase 2, we sent the surveys out to parents and staff, and we started meeting with our principals and trying to get more people involved in what we were doing. And then the initial plans were developed for the return to school for teachers and staff and for students. And phase 3 is where we're at right now, and that is presenting the recommendations to the board. All right, when we talk about return to school, we have in school or face-to-face. You're going to hear it called a lot, either one of those kind of interchangeably, in school or face-to-face. Some people call it in-seat. So, but that just means the kids are coming back for a traditional day at the school. Virtual is going to be asynchronous, and what that means, they gave us an option of asynchronous versus synchronous. Synchronous would be like, I'm live streaming. If y'all are my students and I'm teaching, I'm live streaming and I'm interacting with you on the live stream. Kids would be sitting at home for that hour for math, an hour for reading, an hour for ELAR, whatever that they did, and it would be like they would sit there to do that. Asynchronous is a little more flexible. It allows us to have students working at home, but it's on a platform. It's on a learning platform system. The teachers still provide the support. They still provide the instruction. They still provide the assignments. They're calling them, making contact, but it's not a live stream. So that's the difference. So ours will be virtual asynchronous. Okay, options. Option 1 is going to be a typical start of the school. So what it would be that parents will receive an email on July the 29th. They will have to commit by August the 3rd whether they want their student in school or whether they want their student virtual. They make that commitment. Up to 2 weeks prior to school is when they can change the commitment. So that's why we're saying it would be due August the 3rd. Hope to have a lot more information where they can make a very educated choice at that point, because we'll have it firmed down by then as far as exactly what all they need. It is important that if they choose to go virtual, then they have to ensure us that they have a reliable Wi-Fi source where that student can actually receive the instruction. So that's one of the kind of catches on going virtual. August the 10th, teachers would return to school with the exception of new teachers and new staff. They would come August the 3rd. They always typically come a week earlier because there's a lot more for them to do and get accustomed to the system. August the 13th, that is going to be the 1 week prior to school when TEA says we have to have a plan in place. Of course, we want it sooner than 1 week prior to school. Only reason we would change it is if some mandates came down and changed, but that's when the deadline TEA says we have to have a plan in place 1 week prior to school. August the 20th would be the first day of school, and students would either be virtual or they would be in school. One of the two instruction. They would have that choice. They would let us know on August the 3rd and August the 20th. Some of those kids come, some of them start their virtual experience. September 28th would be the second 6 weeks period beginning, and that's when they can choose to switch. They could switch from, okay, I was virtual the first 6 weeks, didn't like that, didn't work out for me, I want to go back to in class, or vice versa. Numbers are going up, I'm afraid for my kid to be in school, I'm going to go from in class, in person, back to the virtual setting. Now, I'm not saying that there cannot be some that change before then, because if in the event a student was exposed or something occurred and they were in person, of course we're going to let them switch to a virtual setting if that needs to happen. It's just we're going to try to keep the bulk of those switching at the grading period so that our teachers will know who their kids are. Okay, so if we do the in-school, we're going to talk about some different things on that. As far as the bus is concerned, all students riding the bus would be required to wear a face covering. As students were entering the bus, the parents have to indicate they have been self-screened, that there's no temperature, none of the symptoms exist. When they get off the bus and as they're entering the school building, they have to wear those masks if they're 10 and older, or face coverings, until they get seated in their classroom. They need to be wearing those at that point in social distancing from each other. Car riders, same scenario. The parents will self-screen the students before they come to school. They'll verify they don't have any of the symptoms. And then students 10 and over entering or exiting the school will be social distancing and wearing those face coverings until they get to their classrooms. Now, we're going to talk about the 10 and over because 4th grade splits that age. Some of them are 9, some of them are 10. So we're going to actually say 4th grade instead of it just saying, because otherwise you're going to be keeping up with everybody's birthdays in the class. So we're going to say 4th grade and over. Campuses are working hard at finalizing their plans for their meals. It's really hard to get a plan until we know how many kids are coming back, because if only a third or a fourth or even half of the kids come back, it's going to be a whole lot easier social distancing and not even really having to worry about staggering. But if we have 75% of the kids come back, we're going to have to stagger lunches a little more than we're accustomed to in order to spread those kids out 6 foot apart. We had looked at maybe in the classroom. At that point, you get into a staffing issue because you have to offer your teachers a 30-minute free duty lunch every day. And so if the kids are eating in the classroom with a teacher, that's not a 30-minute free duty lunch. So after looking at it, we believe we can do that without having to have the kids in the classroom. If we have to go back that way, if so many kids come back that we have to, then we will. But right now, we're looking at actually using all the spaces that we have. And again, 4th grade is going to be, the kids have to wear a face covering at all times while in the classroom and building if they're 4th grade and up. All right, more in school. Restrooms, all students 10 plus or 4th grade and over will wear their face coverings going through the hallways. The number of students allowed in the restroom will be dependent upon the size of the restroom, so we can again try to ensure that social distancing. And the kids will have to get out of the habit of congregating, not only in the restroom, but in the hallways. There's going to have to be continual monitoring to make sure. We do have a lot of the directional stickers and the social distancing stickers. We have all of that ordered. Hopefully that will come in before the start of school. So we do have a lot of that ordered. This has been a big question everybody has, if a student is symptomatic, what are you going to do? So if a student is sitting in class and all of a sudden they develop a cough, or feel like they're running a fever, whatever the condition is, at that point, that student is going to be removed from the classroom, sent down to the nurse's office, and the parents will be notified to pick them up. The rest of the class is going to be removed from that classroom as well. We'll have another empty room somewhere that we will put them, have disinfecting of the room. All parents will be notified so that they can watch for symptoms of their student as well at home. So that's going to be the plan on that. We won't send the whole class home. It's just strictly removing them to another area, disinfecting, and notifying the parents. At that point, if a parent has a fear of sending their kid back, we would allow them to go virtual if they wanted to do that at that point. We'll be fluid on that. Okay. We'll make every feasible effort to keep those students as far apart as we can in the classrooms, in the hallways, and other locations. The American Academy of Pediatrics just released last week that they believe that 3 foot may be as good as 6 foot apart. So they're even kind of teeter-tottering on the amount of space. Our goal is always going to be the 6 foot apart, but in the event that we had so many come back, they are saying that for pediatrics, for the younger children, that 3 foot is an adequate distance as well. Expect changes as we go. Okay, this is something that we expect to be coming down from our local health officials. They're looking at, and that's Lee Nordstrom, and they're looking at a percentage that they could do countywide. And for example, they may come back and say if 10% of your classroom is COVID positive, then we'll shut down your classroom. If 10% of your campus, and that does include teachers as well and staff, if 10% of your overall campus comes back COVID positive, then we would shut down your campus. Or if the district, 10% or more of your district did, then they could look at that. They're working on that. We had a meeting with them last week, and we expect some guidance on that soon. Okay, how will in-school and virtual look alike? These are the things they're going to have in common, regardless of what they choose. They will all follow TEKS, the same curriculum. They'll all be counted either present or absent. There is some accountability for them. There has to be a login, or there has to be a teacher contact where the teacher can assess them to determine growth for the day, or they are counted absent. Of course, if they're counted absent, there's no funding, so we're going to make a very big effort to continually contact those students that are not logging in. Grades, all students will have the same grades. We talked about that earlier, so it'll be equitable in the grades. And all students are going to be taught by a highly qualified teacher. So those are things that are going to be alike. A few more things. Okay, we are going to offer support and for social and emotional needs. Our counselors will be available for even those kids that are virtual. Of course, it's a little more difficult for them to know who needs it unless someone reaches out to them, but they will be available to service them should the need arise. All students are going to participate in the same district and state assessments. As of right now, they're saying that kids will be taking the STAR and EOC. They did release today that 5th grade and 8th grade will not be required to pass to move on. So they did at least get rid of that today. Okay, all students are going to have the choice of their instructional method, and like I said, they can change at the end of the grading period. And accountability, all students will have equal accountability for their growth, development, and mastery. Okay, so now let's talk about if it's strictly virtual instruction. All students will need a device, and those who do not already have a device will be provided one. And that's what Bill was talking to you about, that 2,000 that we ordered. We're hoping those are going to be in by the beginning of school, but we do have a feel for those who need one, and we think we're going to be okay in the event that they don't all come in time. All students who elect for remote when in school will be required to have their own Wi-Fi. Like I said earlier, if they come and say, I don't have Wi-Fi, but I want to be remote, unless we are able to help them provide for that, they have to have that Wi-Fi in order to be eligible. The kids are going to have different learning platforms depending on their grade level. So if you're K through 2nd, they're going to use the learning platform of Seesaw. 3rd through 5th is using Google Classroom, and then the secondary will be using Canvas, is what they'll be using. And daily participation, again, for all grade levels will be required. It's just different platforms to adjust to the kids' needs. Okay, virtual again. Students will not have a specific time during the day to complete the assignment. If we went synchronous, like I said, we would have had, the kids would have had to log in from 8 to 8:45 for math, and then 9 o'clock to 9:45 for ELAR. But we went with asynchronous, where we had that flexibility, so the kids do not have a specific time, but they do have to log in daily, and they do have to complete their assignments in order to show growth. TEA has said the 90% rule will be in effect. So in essence, if a kid does not, a student does not log in and does not complete any of their assignments, then they will not be eligible for promotion because they will have violated the 90% rule. They have to be in attendance 90% of the time in order to get credit for their class and for their grade level. So if a student in high school fails to log in for algebra every day, if they don't make that 90% of the time, even though they've logged in for another class and we received funding, they still cannot get credit for the class if they do not attend that class 90% of the time. Grades will be traditional number grades, and like I said, they'll be the same for in-school versus virtual, and they will be in Skyward, just as if they were in their seat. Immunizations have not been waived, so regardless of whether you're virtual or whether you are in person, immunization requirements have to still be met. And all enrolled pending board approval, whether they are in school or virtual, will be allowed to participate in extracurricular with some different guidelines if the board approves that. We'll talk about that a little later on. Option 2. So now that's the option 1 where we can say you get to choose. You can come in seat or you can do virtual. Any questions about that one in particular?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So are the kids going to be allowed to, if I say that I'm going virtual, it's I'm virtual for 6 weeks, I'm virtual for 4 weeks, it's not going to be a come and go.
Right. There will have to be an extenuating circumstance for them to have to switch. Example, a sibling, they're all in school, and a sibling comes down with COVID. So then absolutely, we want those family members to go home and do virtual. But there has to be an extenuating circumstance. It's not just I woke up late today, so I'm going to be virtual today. Nothing like that.
Gotcha. So the other part is I had a question about is if you haven't registered yet, how are we harvesting registration so that these people can get a survey on how they want to do that? I think that they should have to register before they receive a survey.
Just normal registration. No, the surveys will actually go out to all, well, any
So
returning. So if it's a new
I have to know how to
student,
staff.
that's right.
I have to know how to staff, so
Yeah.
tell me how many kids are registered. In the state of
Right.
Texas, you have to be enrolled somewhere.
Yes.
So tell me what you're doing. So I think that we need to put in something where, tell me, register. If you decide to be virtual or if you decide to be classroom, that's up to you, but I have to know what you're doing.
Right.
Whether you're enrolling with us, you have to be enrolled somewhere so I can take you out of my role so I can staff properly, right?
Yes, that's correct. It's a typical enrollment's exactly like it's always been. If
Okay,
they
well,
leave one district,
we
they
need to
to come.
find a measure where we can put pressure on people to get their kids registered because we're not able to measure that right now.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I can have PEMS to reach out, and we can even send out a Skyward email in order to plot that and put it on social
Because I know right
media.
now we're not seeing a lot of the numbers that we're typically used to seeing.
Okay, absolutely.
Hall passing,
Mhm.
especially on the bigger campuses
Yes.
for middle school and for high school.
We're gonna have directional traveling.
Okay.
So we will have the stickers and the things where there is directional traveling. It's gonna take a lot more teacher support in maintaining that distancing. We're gonna be looking at how we can stagger some of those releases of the kids. And tardy's going to be something probably of the past because we're going to have to release those in different time periods to be able to stagger those kids going.
Okay.
So,
You mentioned star waivers for grading for 5 and 8.
yes,
Okay, so those things are great, but I think that I also read somewhere that the district was going to be still held to an A through F accountability.
that is correct, as
How
of
is that
today.
fair?
Yeah, I know. I didn't say it is fair. Not at all, but as of today, they have not waived anything. I'm hoping that 5 and 8 is the beginning of them looking at that. But right now, we are held to the exact same accountability as we would if it was a normal school year.
And they're still going to have to take the test, but they're just going to get a waiver on what their pass-fail piece is.
That's correct, because 5th and 8th grade right now have to pass their math and their reading in order to go to the next grade level.
Correct. Okay. I had something else, but I lost it. I didn't write down the whole question, sorry.
If you think of it, we'll come back.
I think Dr. Shaw has a question.
Yes.
Our teachers that are teaching in the classroom, are all those people, did they volunteer to do that?
No, we don't even know how many we're going to have virtual and how many we're going to have in seat. We don't even know at this point till we make a decision if we're going to go in seat to begin with, or if we're going to do a soft launch with the virtual. So until we make those decisions and get the information out to the teachers, we don't know who wants to do what or how many we need for each area.
Do we have a plan if we don't have enough teachers to do this face-to-face?
I think we will. I'll show you on here. We have 98% on our survey of the teachers that filled it out said they're coming back. So we did a teacher survey, 98% said they're coming back. So I don't think we're going to have an issue. Now, we will have a process if we have someone who's got medically fragile or underlying conditions, where we're going to have an application process, and so that way we can put those people where they need to be for safety reasons.
Okay, so I think part of the delay in the registration is they're waiting for some of these details. So we're hoping that this
This will
answers
solve
some of
it.
this information for them, so answer their questions, and then they'll proceed forward, so
I
that's
understand.
part of the issue.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but the thing that the public may not understand, because we haven't been able to give them all the information, is that we need to know so that we can properly allocate staffing
No, I get that.
campuses
And
and set up
I think we'll get that from the
classes
survey
and set up
that we send
schedules.
out.
Yes.
We'll get that information from the survey, but I think some are waiting to register because they want to know, what are you
I don't
going to
know
do?
what's going on.
So that's the thing. So
Yes.
from virtual standpoint, if the kid has to log on, you said that he may be logging into one class, but if you don't log into the second class, so they have to log into every class?
They have to be in attendance in a class period in order to get, now that's secondary, okay? At your elementary level, when they log in for a period, then they're counted present. But each course, like at the secondary level, is a credit. They have to have so many credits in order to actually move on to graduate.
But are they logging into like a class schedule like they would attend a class at the high school?
Yes, they're going, well, it doesn't have to be on that time frame, but they will have their class schedule. They'll have it just like normal. That way, if you decide to switch at 6 weeks, I mean, it's very fluid, you can move in. So you have your class schedule, and so you have algebra, and you have English, and you have history, and you have biology. You're going to have to log in daily and do an assignment, show growth in every single subject in order to get credit for that subject for the day.
Okay, but you're not on a 8 o'clock, I'm in,
No,
logged in this,
no.
10 o'clock, I'm in, okay.
No,
All
that would
right.
be the synchronous, and we didn't go with
Okay,
that
so we
one.
need, I wanted to clarify that.
They kind of answered my question, you know, like when asynchronous, you know, the time period when a child gets to school, you know, and he's accounted present,
Right,
you know, for that time frame, and then you're punished for that.
right.
If it's staggered on an asynchronous level, then it's gonna be dictated from the time they log in
That's correct.
for that class.
For that class, that is correct. Now, it's not a certain time, but they have to log in that day for the class. So still, if they log in at all for anything, we'll receive funding if the kid logs in for that day. So that's totally separate from credit for the course. But they have to log in and show progress that they have done something in their learning platform for each subject in order to get credit for that subject.
For each day.
So they may
That's
not,
right.
so they may not have any homework or any work to do, but they have to at least show they log in and check
That's
to see what,
exactly right.
what needed to be done. Okay, so from a device standpoint, we're looking at purchasing some Chromebooks and maybe some hotspots and maybe some iPads. If we started off virtual, do we have enough to do that?
We did a survey. I'll get to the results of that survey
Okay.
here in a few minutes, and yes, we believe we have enough for them to do it for a few
Okay.
weeks. Now, I wouldn't want them to do it for a long, long period, because some of those things, their phone's not gonna be adequate.
Sure.
If they're saying they have a device and it's only that phone, that's not gonna be adequate,
Okay.
so.
So the other piece to the virtual side of it, and you may be getting to this, is there gonna be a daily piece, a time frame cutoff where any type of work that they have that has to be completed, so they get counted, because we're doing following day
Right.
counting for accountability, right?
That's correct. What we're doing, and we're working with Peams right now on that, is if we could default to present, for everyone to be present, and the following day, if it's, we're gonna have case managers that look at the platforms, teachers may be doing that, we may have people, paras assisting them, and they didn't log in, then they'll have to go back and change that they were not present. It is gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. So we figured that'd be easier to default to that and go back and pick up those few. We'll also have teachers contacting them if they haven't, if no one's logged in and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you got an alert they didn't log in, we're gonna have them calling them. Or someone calling saying you haven't logged in, you aren't kind of present for the day, log in, or you're having some trouble. We're gonna be doing a lot of follow-up,
That's gonna be pretty tough for
Talking to
the
Mike.
teachers that on an asynchronous pattern, that, because with multiple students, you know, attending multiple different classes, that platform is gonna be hard to track.
It's gonna be difficult, it is. I mean, we're gonna have to really get into using, like I said, utilizing our staff. If we can assign, we talked about the word case managers. If we decide that, you know, freshman case managers are these people that are the paras, maybe some of our coaching staff that normally does the inclusion and the co-teach and things like that, we may not need them in those roles anymore, so they can actually assist in the teacher handing in a sheet of paper. 3 o'clock, these kids did not, or even 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, these kids have not logged in. Can you contact them, find out if they have trouble logging in, are they really sick? I mean, a kid may be sick and not log in that day. You know, what is the reasoning so that we can do that? They're going to have assistance, and we know that. They can. They can. Because some parents may not get home until 8 o'clock at night to assist them. Yes, they can do that. They can do that.
Okay.
Anything else on that part? Okay. All right, so, option 2. And like I said, this has just evolved because now they're saying we can actually get funding for all virtual. So option 2 would be August the 10th, the teachers return to school just like a normal school year. And they start their preparation and development for the school year. August the 20th, the students will all be virtual. No one comes seat to seat. They'll all be virtual for 2 weeks, and then if they do not have Wi-Fi, teachers can prepare packets, and we can get those packets to the students. Hopefully, most of them could pick them up. If not, we utilize our Suburbans and our bus drivers and people transportation and try to get those packets to them. Because in order for us to get credit, they've got to fill the packets out, teachers have to grade them, and we have to be equitable. So this is an all virtual setting. September the 1st, parents would choose, do they want virtual? So this is pushing it back. Parents would choose whether they want virtual or in school for their students. September 8th then becomes the day that some of those kids come in and some stay virtual. So basically it pushes it from August the 20th as the start date for virtual and in-person back to September 8th. So September 8th is when they would choose, and then September 28th again is the second 6 weeks, and they can make a choice of if they want to switch that direction. So you've got the choice of, do we want to just stick to the original plan, to where we open the school, and the kids that want to come, and their parents want them to come, they come and we implement safety measures, or do we want to push back for a couple of weeks and look at doing all virtual with those kids? We would have the option as well on the 8th, say August 28th, September 1st rolls around and numbers are spiking. You'd have the option again to go 2 more weeks with virtual before we had to apply for any additional time. So that's just another option.
What did the parents say? I think you
Yeah,
told us.
we did. We had about 40%, it was almost a split. 40% said that they would send their kids back, 40% were unknown, and less than 20 said no.
And it was, how many people responded?
1,600, it's on my slide here in a minute, 1,600, I believe.
This is what Midlothian just approved tonight, by the way.
This one? Okay. So that's another option. We'll talk about some pros and cons. I want y'all to have everything before decisions are made on that. Okay, so items to take into consideration. If you choose option 1, in person, the working parents, of course, it benefits them because they have a way to bring their students in, someone to support them. Households that have no Wi-Fi, take into consideration. We don't think that's very many, but still there are those that have no Wi-Fi. This is the big one to me, skills for those younger learners. You know, if you're going virtual, it's hard for them to get those skills. The slide, which is the negative impact of the kids not being in a classroom, and socialization. Those are the things that CDC is really pushing, and we'll get into some more details about that. It's the reason that you should have some mode of in-person. But on the same hand, things to consider if you go option 2. And these are big things as well. You got a lot of anxiety going on. You have a lot of parents, you have a lot of staff that are very anxious and they're worried about us releasing too early. Exposure, it does limit exposure for high-risk populations, and it does reduce the spread. We believe it'll reduce the spread of the virus. So option 1, we're addressing a lot of needs. Option 2, we're addressing a lot of limits of exposure. Okay. Decisions have to be made. And the reason we want to get this out there as quickly as we can is several reasons. Teachers need to know what they're preparing for. I mean, we have held them off as, you know, as long as we can hold them off. They deserve to get to know, you know, what we're going to be doing, what they're expected to do. So I'd like to get something decided so that we can get that information. Are they going to be doing virtual? Are they going to be doing in school? Are they going to be doing both? I mean, if we have a teacher, you know, like a foreign language teacher, and we only have one, you know, then that teacher may be juggling with some support, you know, had to do the virtual and the in-school. So we need to have time for them to prepare. Parents need time to prepare as well, because some of them may not have ways for their children. If they decide they want to be virtual, they may not have someone to keep their child or support them, and they're going to have avenues to do that. Technology department desperately needs to know so that we can prepare. You know, are we going to have to get all those devices ready to go 100% virtual at the beginning of school? And then we have to also remember, no matter what we decide, it could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because we are still held by the guidelines of the governor, TEA, and our local health authorities. And we've seen several, like Tarrant County, you know, shut down their entire county, their school. You know, so we are held. I do not believe that's anywhere where Ellis County is headed at this point after our conversation with Dr. Lee Nordstrom, but, you know, it could happen if numbers start rising. So whatever we decide could change. As my dad said, it's not the gospel. All right, the road will be unfamiliar, and we know it. Campus administrators, bless their souls, they're fielding so many questions right now because we haven't been able to give them any answers. And so they're fielding all those questions from the parents and the staff, and so we want to be supportive and provide them with the information. Teachers and staff, they have their own individual concerns, their own individual fears, and all individual fears, you know, they may have their own health conditions, they may have elderly parents, they may have a child that has issues and problems. So even though we have to bring teachers back in, we're trying to be very sensitive to those needs as well. So that's something we're doing with parents as well, because you've got both ends of the spectrum. You've got open the doors and let my child in, and then you have those that why would you even dream of bringing my kid back? So we have both ends of the spectrum, and we have a lot of people in the middle. So those are their precious commodities. Those are their most precious prizes. And so we understand that. And when they get angry, you know what? That's okay. Because they love those kids and they want to protect them. And so we just take it, try to answer those questions. So we totally understand their frustration. And regardless of the choice, students will need support in the classroom. So it's going to be a different world for everybody. And the ESC staff, y'all, I can't say enough about everybody here at the ESC. They haven't gone home. They've been here for the spring break, and everybody has just worked so hard and thrown in their ideas. And it's amazing how you can think you have it figured out, and you get a group of people together, and you're like, well, I never thought of that. I mean, lots of good brain activity going on at the ESC. Okay, this is big, and I am not going to read all this to you, but I am going to hit some highlights. I did want you to have a copy of it, and I did want to put it on our website because a lot of people are asking us, where are you getting your information from? A lot of the information comes from CDC, a lot from TEA. So let's hit some highlights on the CDC. All right, I also put the website on here, so it'll be a live link whenever it's uploaded onto the site where someone can pull it and see word for word. I did not put it word for word because it's way too much, but the main thing that they're saying is parents are understandably concerned about the safety of their children at the school, and everybody gets that. but they want everybody to also know the harm attributed to the schools being closed. There's a lot of things you have to look at, not just the academic, but the social, emotional, the behavioral, long-term, short-term effects if you don't open the schools. And also the lack of in-person education options. It is disproportionate because if you have a teacher or someone with a higher level of education at home with their students and they understand the geometry or the algebra or the physics and all of that, they can help those students. But if you've got those parents who are unable to do that, then you do see some disproportionality as far as the low-income kids, those who don't have that support. So those are some of the main things they want us to look at. This is, aside from not a child's home, no other setting other than school provides a bigger influence than a school setting. So some of the things I want us to look at is that the in-person setting does the following. We provide the education, we support the social emotional, we create a safe learning environment, and we address nutritional needs and facilities like physical education. Now, there's going to be some argument on that, because the people will say, well, wait a minute, I thought you said you were going to provide social emotional for the virtual. We are, but we have to know about it. This is talking more about those kids that teachers might see or someone might notice that they need something when they're in their classroom. If a parent reaches out to us, absolutely, those virtual kids are still going to get that social emotional support. Nutritional needs, kids are still going, if they are low income on the free and reduced lunch, then they will still be eligible to pick up food just like they did in the spring. They'll still be able to go to their designated campus and pick up their food. So we're still going to feed those kids if they qualify. So we will still be addressing those nutritional needs as well. And physical activity, I know PE has been a big topic. We do have, the principals were amazing. I sat in here with the elementary one day with elementary principals, and they're working it out. They're splitting off their playgrounds. They're talking about rotating. They're still looking for ways to get those kids some physical activity. So that is important too. Okay, COVID-19 in children. And the best evidence, they said, indicates that COVID-19 poses relatively low risk to school-age children, and the children appear to be at a lower risk for contracting it compared to adults. I don't think anyone's arguing that point. I think everybody pretty much is in the realization that kids are not getting it, but as much as the adults are. But I know that on the opposite side of that, the arguments were about our teachers, and I get that. So we understand the CDC's guideline on that the children are, less likely to contract it, but we have to look at our staff as well. Okay. They also have said that transmission among children in schools is low. They suggest that it's low, and that the spread in school is low as long as the community spread is low. So it kind of goes hand in hand. We can all, I can say I got it from my first grade student, or I might have gotten it from Walmart. You'll never be able to track where you were actually infected, so it kind of goes hand in hand. And that there's been few reports of children being the source of transmitting it within their own family. So they're saying that children are not really that much of a transmission. Educational instruction. Extended closure is harmful to children. These are not my words. These are not my words. These are CDC guidelines. I just want you to have all the information. It can lead to severe learning loss. The need for in-person instruction is particularly important for students with heightened behavioral needs because they need that structure. Kids need that structure. And then following the wave of school closure this last spring, academic learning slowed. We all know that. We all know that it stopped for a lot of kids. Some of the kids didn't get any. So that's one of their concerns. We also know that a long break in in-person education can be harmful. As a first grade teacher for years, summer was a long break. It was amazing how those kids could read in kindergarten, and then they got to me and they didn't know what a letter was. Just those breaks, there is a loss once you're out of school for a certain period of time. Again, we already talked about the educational outcomes for minority and low income, gaps across income levels. They're just reiterating that. And one of the big things they were saying was remote learning makes absorbing the information more difficult with those students with disabilities because of connection. And it doesn't even have to be a student with a disability. Most kids need a connection in order to learn something. It's kind of like Rita Pearson said, kids don't learn for people they don't like, but kids do learn from people they do like. So if they can form those connections, they do learn better. We talked about social and emotional skill development is a critical role for the whole student. Peer relationships, they're gonna miss out on that if they're not in school. Social and development, emotional skills, interacting with not just their peers, but with adults as well, other people outside of their family, and just accessing those support systems will not be there if the kids are not in school. Again, they keep iterating. It can be harmful if you have extended closures of your school. An environment where kids feel safe and connected, such as school, is associated with lower levels of depression, thoughts of suicide, social anxiety, and things like that. So it's better for them if they have those connections again. But it's really, again, not my words, CDC words, but they're saying it's very important for those kids to be in school. So there's a lot to weigh on that, Mental health, social services, speech therapy, psychological, just all kinds of things you have to look at. Okay, safety. Again, they're saying it deprives children who live in unsafe homes. Sometimes being at school is the safest environments for some students. So at that point, we are neglecting to protect those students if we don't offer them that safe home. Children who live in a home or neighborhood where neglect or violence or abuse occurs, but who are not physically in school, are deprived of access to trained professionals. Like I said, we're going to offer the support, but if we don't know the support's needed, then that's the catch. Nutrition, we talked about this. The kids need healthy foods, but again, we're going to be offering that to those students who can make it here to get it. Of course, that's the problem too. Even though they qualify for the reduced lunch, if they don't have someone to bring them, they're not going to get that reduced lunch if they're local. If they're in school, we make sure they eat. Physical activity, again, a lot of kids are going to be sitting at home behind a computer and maybe go from the computer to the Xbox, from the Xbox to Netflix, and they're not going to be getting that physical activity. So it's for the safety. These are things that came down from TEA. We just talked about the guidance that came from CDC, but this is guidance now coming from TEA. And these are public health considerations. First thing is they talk about provide. They talk about provide, prevent, respond, and mitigate. Those are the 4 things they're talking about. When they talk about providing, we have to provide a notice. This was 2 weeks, just until last week. 1 week prior to school, we have to provide the notice of how we're going to offer instruction. And then once we do that, we have to also notify how we're going to prevent the virus from entering the school as best we can. So these are some of the things TEA has told us to do. We must require teachers and staff to self-screen for the symptoms before coming onto campus each day. And parents must ensure they do not send a child to campus if they have COVID-19 symptoms or a positive confirmed case. Now, they're saying kids are not showing a lot of symptoms, so we could have them walking around with COVID and not know that. So again, it's not really the kids that are contracting it from each other, it's more the teachers that we're having to look at. Okay, we have to, again, provide a public notice of the on-campus activities and instruction. I'm not going to read all this to y'all. After we provide, we have to prevent. So these are things that they are telling us from TEA that we need to look at. The self-screening again, we have to ensure that we don't send the sick child to campus. We have to exclude the parental drop-off and pickup. If someone does have symptoms and they're noted symptoms or we know they're a positive, that child cannot enter the school building. We have to make sure that they don't. We're not going to be temperature checking every kid. That's going to actually be a parent thing to do. I know there's some concern about, well, what if we give them Tylenol, and then by noon they have a fever. Well, again, then we follow that protocol. If they have a symptom, they go to the nurse, we call the parent to pick them up, we take every kid out of the classroom, and we clean, we disinfect before we put the kids in and we call all the other parents. That's with everything. I mean, that happens with every sickness. Okay, again, individuals that are confirmed or suspected, if they're lab confirmed or if they experience the symptoms, they must stay at home throughout the infection period. And what that boils down to is in a case where an individual is diagnosed with COVID, the individual may return to school when all 3 of the following happen. So if I'm tested positive, then all 3 of these must happen before I come back to school. At least 3 days or 72 hours have passed since recovery, which means I hadn't had a fever. or any of the symptoms for 72 hours. I have improvement in the symptoms. At least 10 days have passed since the symptoms were present. So, again, I don't know that we're going to know when a kid is positive, because if a kid just is feeling sluggish one day, I don't think the parents are going to run down and test them for COVID, and they very well could have it. So that's kind of in the air too, as if we'll ever know, some of these kids that might have it. In the case if an individual has symptoms that could be COVID, but they have not been evaluated by a medical professional, such a person is assumed to have COVID. So that's the presumptuous COVIDs. And that individual may not return to campus until they have also met the 3-step process. So positives and presumptive positives cannot return until they've met those. If the individual has symptoms and they want to return to school before completing that at-home period, they have to obtain a medical professional's note clearing them to return. They have to receive 2 separate confirmations at least 24 hours apart that they are negative. So they have those options in that as well. And then identifying possible COVID cases on campus, schools must immediately separate. We already talked about that. We're going to separate those kids if they show symptoms. We clean the areas and disinfect. We have that in the works as well. And then students who report feeling feverish should be given an immediate temperature check to determine if they're symptomatic. That's a given. That's something we definitely have to be given. Okay. Respond, again, this is how we respond to it. We will notify the local health department if we have a lab-confirmed COVID-19. We'll close off the areas, and we will disinfect the surfaces, and we will notify all teachers, staff, and families of all students in the school if a lab-confirmed COVID-19 case is identified among teachers, students, or staff who participated in an activity. So that would pretty much be if we had volleyball practice, and one of the volleyball girls or the coach came down with that, that's an activity, and then we would notify everyone involved in that activity. And again, confirmed cases have been in school. If an individual has been in school as lab confirmed, we'll notify the health department. I don't think I just did that one. Let's move on. Mitigate. Practices to mitigate the likelihood of COVID spread. So we don't know it's there, but we want to try, or we do know it's there, we want to try to mitigate what's going on. We have to rely on health and hygiene practices. We have not only ordered, we've ordered, and we also have a state allotment assessment coming in of hand sanitizers. We should have face shields for every teacher. They're sending us 800 face shields. We're getting thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer. We have ordered 100 of the big freestanding hand sanitizer stations, and also we've built a few as well as ordering those. And so those are going to be at the entrance and exit of every campus in the major places where spread could occur. They're just all on back order right now. We're waiting for those to come in. So hopefully we're going to be getting those things. Masks, we're getting a lot of masks. We've had people ask, are you providing masks for the students? We're not providing them. If a student gets to the bus and doesn't have one, we might have some on the bus. The bus driver could give someone to get on with, but we're not going to provide them every day because most of those will be disposable. And with us having almost 6,000 kids, depending on the number that come back, we would run out. We do have an allotment of masks coming in so that we can, in the event we do have a kid show up at school without one, showing up without your lunch, you're going to feed the kid. We will have some available to give to those students as well. And we are going to practice our social distancing everywhere feasible. And I know that's a very broad statement, and some people don't like that statement, but that is the statement that TEA has given us of anywhere feasible. The bus would be an example of that. Depending on how many kids you have on that bus, you may not be able to put them 6 foot apart. But if they all have masks and we try to group family with family, we'll try to do everything feasible to make sure those kids are not exposed. We all know the health and hygiene practices. They've been really getting that home with us about washing your hands and doing all of that. We know on the student groupings in classroom spaces that allow it, they want us to consider placing desks a minimum of 6 feet apart. In classrooms where students are regularly within 6 feet of each other, then more frequent hand washing and hand sanitizing. Kind of a given, it's just, when I had taught first grade and I had kids that had strep throat, we threw all the pencils and colors away and we started all over. It's just kind of that common sense approach to making sure everything's clean. non-classroom spaces, when feasible and appropriate, like in a PE class, then it is preferable for students to gather outside rather than inside because of the likelihood of reduced virus. Schools may continue to offer extracurricular activities at their discretion. And that's, I've got UIL things in there too that you'll have that to look at, because we do have some guidelines from them that came out. And as in the case in typical years, school systems with policies that allow it to be open facilities to the public, operation of those facilities should be done consistent with the governor's order. Now, we do have to look at not just the governor's order, we have to look at our local county order and also at our city orders as well. And I do have some things I'm trying to clarify on that because there are tighter restrictions locally in the city of Red Oak than there are in the governor's. So I think the face mask is one of those. Right now it's 3 years of age instead of 10 years of age. But that does go out on August the 13th unless they redo it. So I'm trying to get some clarification from TEA on if that's going to impact what we do as well. Okay, staffing. Employees of the school system, like employees of any organization, must continue to meet the work expectations set by their employers. These are not my words. These are TEA's words. But this is exactly, I just copied it word for word out of the TEA guidelines. That has been, I know a fear. I'm telling you, our teachers are the ones who are afraid. They're the ones who, and the staff, you know, they fear coming back because they thought they're more susceptible. So we're going to really have to train and work on anything and everything to protect them. And like I said, if they do have some type of medical issue, then we'll work with them as well to the extent that we can. We're going to have strict protocols, guidelines, training. We're going to reduce our in-person staff meetings. Any of the guidelines set forth by TEA, we are going to follow them. And these are available on, if you just Google TEA COVID guidelines, anybody can pull this up. It's public record, so anybody can pull it up. Screening, I'm not going to read these to y'all. Y'all probably have that ingrained in your head. I think a lot of the places we go walk into, their parking lots, they're telling us what the symptoms are, so we'll always have the symptom screenings. Close contact. Now, this is something a lot of people don't know. The document for TEA refers to close contact if someone is lab confirmed to have COVID-19. This is what close contact means. Being directly exposed to the infectious secretions. So that means like somebody coughed on you and you didn't have your mask on. If you had your mask on, then you're not directly exposed. Or being within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more while not wearing a mask or shield. So those are the 2 things that they've given us to define close contact. That's why we're hoping most teachers won't have that, because they're supposed to be wearing their face mask or their shields or whatever other face covering they choose, and that way they wouldn't be directly exposed. Screening questions, those are pretty generic, but they do have a lot of those. Here's our surveys. This was our teacher survey result. With the teacher surveys, we had 542 responses, and we had 98% said they would be returning to work as scheduled on that one. Now, what it doesn't say is based on what we're doing, do they have a reason to do virtual? So once we know how many kids, we'll do another one to see who qualifies or who should be prioritized for virtual teaching. This is the application process. If you are allowed to teach at home, would you apply to teach at home? We had 16.5% say yes, 10.7 no, 29.1 maybe, and 43.7 said it's not applicable to their position. I guess they feel like they won't be able to teach at home in their position. Parent survey. These are the percentages of the parents who filled out the survey. So we talked about our bulk protective equipment that's coming in, and we asked different scenarios. What would you feel safest with? And predominantly 55.64% said if all students and all staff are required to wear a mask and have their thermometer scans daily, that's where they feel safest. The students are allowed to come in the fall, would you send your kid? And on this one, we had 1,666, there's your number, I couldn't remember exactly. 1,666 parents filled this out. 40.52% said yes, 18.85 no, and then 40% are unsure. And that, again, Mr. Sebring, is exactly what you were talking about, and Mr. Anderson, that a lot of those unknowns, we're hoping that some of those people will be able to come forward after we have all this information. And you know what, they may not come forward until right at the very end, when they see what the numbers are doing, and that's okay. That's all right, we'll plan accordingly. Okay, if your child qualifies for transportation, would you have your child on a bus? And we had 39.3% said yes. I think that's a little lower than we anticipated. So some of those bus riders may not be actually riding the bus. And that could be, again, fear or anxiety of being bus riders. And if virtual school is allowed, this was very important to us while we didn't order that many hotspots or put into that name. Do you have internet service? 95.2% said yes, they have internet service. So we think that number of hotspots we ordered would be accurate. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of the UIL, but I did want to let you look at this slide because we need to think about this. My recommendation would be for all students, whether they're virtual or in person, to be allowed to participate in UIL activities and CTE classes that require in-person attendance at school. That's been something that I've kind of went back and forth on. You know, I'd like your input and your guidance on that. You've got a kid that wants to come to school, wants to participate in sports, but lives with elderly parents who they will not let them come because of their fear themselves, you know, so that's something you have to look at. Transferring to other districts, they can do that to go on their virtual program. It could affect our ADA number. So all the ones around us, we've got a kind of consensus of everyone, and they're going to allow them to come. But I do think we need to put some specifications in there. If they are going to play in a sport, I believe we need to require them to come to that period. They can't just show up at a game and say, I want to play. I think they need to come to that class period. Same thing with CTE, they can't just come and do their skills. They need to actually be in class for that class period if they want to do a certain CTE class that requires hands-on skills. Welding, things like that you require those hands-on skills. They could only come for that class period. If they don't want to come for English and math and history and biology, they want to do virtual, but these they want to come for because they want to participate, then that's something we can look at as well. We talked about today, didn't even think about it. Again, you think you have everything going in your head, and I shot this presentation out to everybody, and Mr. Rogers came up and said, hey, don't we need to have those kids sign in and out? How are we going to know who's here? I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, we would like to require those kids to sign in and out. If we had a lockdown, if we had any kind of emergency, we need to know who's on our campus, who's not. They can't just hang out, choose virtual, and then come for athletics and then decide they're going to hang out and cause problems for the day. They have to leave the campus after the class is finished. So I think we do need to look at some specifications on that. The next slide shows, I'm not going to go through all these because academics is what we're going to focus on, but I did want you to have this in your hand. The UIL football calendar and regulations, volleyball calendar and regulations. Again, it's on the website for those that want to pull it up. We've got our tennis calendar in here, our cross-country calendar. They've released every bit of information we can possibly think of. Regular season for boys and girls basketball and postseason. And then also the fine arts marching band. And we'll be coming with a recommendation from Justin in the near future on what they're anticipating for the marching band as well. And that is the conclusion. A lot of information. But it's something we just really need to discuss and talk about as far as how you're leaning. What is the best way to serve our students, our staff, our community? Are you feeling like we need to go with a soft launch to where we push back to September the 8th as the first time you come in person, but still offer virtual from the 20th? Do y'all think we just go ahead and open it up? Highly encourage those who can do virtual to do virtual at that time, and that allows some of those kids to go ahead and come in. I just need your input.
Do you have a recommendation from administration?
My recommendation, based on the parents, what the parents put, is to allow those kids to come in. That would be my recommendation, but I do know we have a fear, and I respect that as well. You are the ones who are hearing from the public. They don't call me. They don't call me and tell me, you know, what their feelings are. I've had maybe 5 emails, that's it, through this entire process, you know, and those have been for teachers. Teachers, you know, concerned about coming back, and that's something I know y'all probably hear from the teachers more than I actually hear from them. So I would be okay with either because we're gonna service those kids. The plus of going with the soft launch is I think it does give those parents a little bit of, okay, they're trying, you know, they're thinking about it. It gives the teachers that same thought, it gives the technology department time to really get all their technology in place. It gives the teachers time to come in and prepare those lessons. So there are pluses. It's a whole lot better to do it at the beginning than for us to jump in and have school, have a bunch of cases, and then have to send them home. So if we're going to do any kind of launch, it's much, much better to do it at the beginning. And I think that would be more favorable for your teachers and your staff as far as what they want. Again, we just need to let the parents know if we're gonna do that because they may be expecting to be able to bring those kids August the 20th, and that's what their plan is.
So if you do a 2-week delay,
Mhm.
you're calling it a soft launch.
Yes,
You do a 2-week delay, and every kid starts off virtual. So I guess you at least establish how the virtual is gonna work,
Yes.
how it operates. Then September 8th rolls around, why September 8th too? It's a Tuesday.
we're off on that Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, we're off on that
Didn't
Monday.
think about that, good point. Sorry. September 8th, they're back in the classroom if they choose to go that route. So I guess that if, 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the line, we have to go virtual again,
They've done it.
they would at least have done it.
They've done it.
And they know how it works and how it operates, they know what's expected. It does give a little bit more time for technology, it does
It
give
does.
your teachers a little opportunity to settle into the school year.
Right.
And for other districts, I guess, that choose to go full board ahead, you get to see how that
How it works
plays out.
for 'em. How it works out for them. I can see it being beneficial for the teachers in the aspect of they can also see which kids are gonna participate and which ones are gonna have to really stay on top of. It's a good proving point for kids who wanna go virtual and they apply, they say, hey, I'm going virtual, and you went 2 weeks and didn't ever log in. It's a good talking point for teachers to have with the parent. Hey, I don't know that virtual's the best for y'all, your child didn't even log in. We had to stay on you. So there's pluses. And most of the schools, Dennis is doing, they're gonna do 2 weeks virtual, and they're going to do gradual come back, some of the students over a 2-week period. I didn't know Middle Oakland had already
Well, they have
announced
meetings
that.
tonight, so.
Yeah, so there's some of the smaller districts are going full-blown back, and I think either way, I think we're gonna be in a unfamiliar zone, and we're going to be learning as we go. So either way you choose, either way you feel like should be the best way, we're gonna kick in and we're gonna do it. We're gonna service our kids.
Well, you showed your slide where there's 40% say yes.
Mhm.
You had 20% basically said no.
Right.
Well, you still had another 40% that
Then
said,
we're
I
on
don't
no.
know.
Uncertain.
And I don't
Yeah.
know.
So,
And back when we did the survey, the numbers were kind of like they are right now. They're kind of stagnant. I know we've kind of done this. I know a fear is over the holiday weekend, in September. There's also that chance that there could be a spike after that as well. But I think it'll be a good opportunity too, if you want to look at the positives of doing that, for the parents to see, do they really want to choose virtual? Because they'll be able to know, okay, these are the expectations. It's totally different from spring. I don't want to deal with that. I don't think my kid can be successful in that. So that 2-week soft launch would allow for parents to,
okay, so what if they say initially, I want to do virtual, they do the 2 weeks and say, yeah, this is not going to work.
that's okay, because everybody would be virtual that first 2 weeks. And so then they don't have to make their decision until, so that
September
gives them that
1st.
opportunity. Right, yeah, you'd have those as well.
There's gonna be, no matter what we do, there's gonna be a
We
percentage
can't
that
do
aren't.
them all.
Yeah, that's not
Can't
gonna
do
like
them
it.
all.
Happy.
I guess one of the questions is, I know the parent survey was talking about, if virtual school is allowed and are required, would your child have internet service?
Mhm.
Now, I think that may need to be expanded a little bit, because a lot of kids have internet right here.
Right.
So, I know some kids have hotspots, but they're capped.
Right.
So,
We would have those, we would have to meet the needs, most definitely. And we might even have some that, I know we did in the spring that would come up and hit the Wi-Fi at some of the restaurants, you know, they come hit that Wi-Fi there. There's going to be those that we're gonna have to maybe deliver packets to during that 2 weeks, and that's okay. I mean, we can deliver packets during that. The TEA said they will fund us for packets during that soft launch. So we can provide packets, teachers can call them on the phone, they can walk them through the steps. I mean, there's other ways to do it. The biggest concern is those kids that don't have anyone with them, but they've done it for the summer. Like I
Yeah.
said, if we're going to do it, this is the best time where they can continue what they're doing right now. And as far as childcare is concerned.
And looking at the percentages, you know, you have a high percentage, 95% that say yes. So that's a 5%, you know, that say it maybe doesn't, but,
Right.
I just wanna make sure that we're talking apples to apples.
Absolutely.
When they have an understanding
Right.
of internet, you know, what that's gonna require, that it's gonna, you know, require each class is gonna take so much time, and then maybe what kind of plan do they have? You know?
And that's a good window too, to be able to determine that. Like I said, they said 95% had it, and then devices, very few needed devices, but that phone's not gonna work for them. And so that, during that time, if you choose that direction to go to soft launch, during that 2 weeks, they're gonna realize that phone's not gonna work. I need an actual device.
Yeah, well, the other is, I mean, this is 1,600 kids, so this is not every kid in the district.
Right.
So the kids who may need it or may not have it, they may not have been able to respond to the survey to start with.
That's true.
So
That's true.
it may not be a good representation or total representation of what
Right.
the district looks like.
Because we handed out a lot of devices in the spring, a lot. So, I mean, we can do that again. We have devices on hand in order to hand them out. We can't do a one-to-one right now until the other ones come in, but we can hand out devices to those that need it. Yes.
Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but when the parent survey was done, was this option 2? I mean, this is, and maybe I'm missing something. Okay, on option 2, I haven't really heard about these dates before tonight.
No, because.
So what I'm saying is, when they took that survey,
That wasn't
that
an
option wasn't even on the
No,
table.
it was not. That's brand new. What TEA
So,
just provided.
so to me, that,
It's
and
used the
it's not,
result.
it's not the district's fault, it's not the parents' fault, it's not our fault, but that totally skews
It does
everything,
skew
because
the
this
results.
option wasn't even available
Right.
when they were saying, yes, I'll try virtual, or we'll go to school. If they maybe some of them that said, I want to do virtual, if they knew they had 2 more weeks or 4 more weeks, I feel more comfortable waiting a little. But like I say, to me, the survey now is totally skewed.
Right. You're right. There may be totally different answers on that. And the.
And do
what's
we
nice
have
about
time?
the
Are we
2
gonna-
weeks-
are we
Oh, yeah,
gonna-
we could do another
are we
bite. I'd
going to
rather us
do it
make a
again?
decision
We need to make a
before-
decision
I
today
think we
what
need
we're
to make
doing.
a
We're too
decision.
close.
Yeah.
We need to
Okay,
get,
well, that's what I was just,
no, I
because
understand where you come from.
we're
but
all
we-
parents and we do this survey
Right.
and we put out the results. And then we go, but guess what? We're not doing that at all. This is what we're doing and we didn't even ask you. So that, but I know we're running out of time. I get it. I just,
And you're talking 2 weeks. I mean, if we get into it and we have so many parents go, this is not working, then at that end of that 2 weeks, we open back up September 8th. If we get into 2 weeks and our numbers have spiked, you have an option to go 2 more weeks before we even have to ask permission to extend it.
I personally kind of like option 2 here, but like I say, I'm just thinking,
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And the option for them to choose to be virtual or face-to-face, if you want to be home, be home.
You can be home.
It's the same,
Yes.
you know, and that gives on the flip side of it, you're giving the teachers an opportunity to say, hey, this is what my workload's going to be for kids who are going to be here, and not, if you wait 2 weeks and they're just doing virtual, and then you don't know what that unknown is about who is going to come when they say, oh yeah, let's do face-to-face. So, you know, and then the other piece about it, you know how I feel about UIL stuff. If you got a show to play, that's just how I feel about it. I know that probably won't be the route that we end up taking, because that's not what everybody else does.
Right.
But you know, if that's, just not something that we've always done.
Right, right. And on that, we've got time for that. You know, we can come back and y'all can make a decision on that one as far as the participation, if you want to, or if y'all have guidance, I can do a resolution because y'all gave me that authority so that we wouldn't have to come back. So, if, you know, depending on how y'all want to go on that direction as well.
Well, as far as participation, you say they have to be there for that class.
Mm-hmm.
So they come up for
Say it's fifth period, if they come for athletics or something like that.
I'm just telling you right
They
now.
have to have their own
they're not on fifth
transportation.
period because they have it during the day.
Right,
The girls have it in the morning,
right.
but then they practice in the afternoon, so they need to be here for the class period and practice in the afternoon, or?
They would have to be for the class period in order for them to be eligible to participate in a game. That would kind of be up to the coach on, do they have to be there, you know, as far as that is concerned as well. But as far as the district would be concerned, they'd have to be there for the class period. It'd almost be like I was sick and didn't come to class that day, so I didn't get to play that night. Kind of the same scenario if we were in a regular school setting. So if they don't participate, then they don't play. Same thing with CTE, because you could probably have kids come up in cosmetology and they make it do a skill, and at the very last, and they make it come here and it look amazing, but if they haven't participated
But
that
that's the
whole
thing, is you're
time
talking about
period.
cosmetology, you're talking about construction, you're talking about welding. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
You absolutely can't do those things without being
Yeah,
hands-on.
you have to come. You have to.
Well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
those groups aren't having 2 or 3 hour practices after school. They have their class, that's when they do all their work, is during their class time. Athletics, they don't. You may go down, you may watch a film, or you may have a class, you may lift weights. But you can't do much, because by the time you get down and suit up, you gotta get back in your clothes and get back to class. They do the bulk of theirs outside of the normal school hours. Right? Girls do it in the morning, guys do it in the afternoon.
And that's the other part, that's the other problem that I have with it. I'm gonna show up when I want to. Like, all these people, I'm scared to go to class, but you participate in select baseball, you've been at volleyball all summer, you've been at AAU basketball, you've been at livestock shows, you've gone and you've done all these things, but I don't wanna do it now because I'm scared. Come on, man.
That's why you, to me, that's your coaches would have to
And
handle
then
that.
and then whenever your coach says, "Hey, sorry, Cowboy, you didn't come to practice today, but you're not playing, you're not going to start, you're going to sit the first half," then you're going to hear it from the parents.
Well, that's on the coach.
It's a lose-lose, man.
Well, sure it is.
So those are kind of two decisions we need to make. What do y'all want to look at as soft launch, start back August 20th? And then what do you want to look at for UIL and CTE?
So if it went to a soft launch,
Mm-hmm.
how does that dictate the rest of the year?
It is not going to impact the calendar because we would still be starting our instructional day on August the 20th. At the end of that 2 weeks or somewhere in the middle, if you decided to extend it another 2 weeks, you have that option, the board would have that option to extend it. At the end of the solid 4 weeks, you have an option to go to the state and request, because of a situation in your district, you have to apply to request an additional 4 weeks. Right now, that's all they're giving, is that 8 weeks, unless your county health official shuts you down. So basically, you're pushing back the start, is what you're doing, unless your county shuts you down.
Because just looking at it, if it goes virtual, still starts to.
Yes, August 20th would be the day. That's correct. And that's when we would provide instruction, August the 20th. That's correct. It's just the mode of instruction, whether it be virtual or in person or both.
Well, you have to choose those on the screen.
Yes, that is correct.
Those are the only ones on the screen, okay? So 47%.
Decision, I know.
So, okay, well, I mean, it's,
Teachers, so I'm just, the live feeds in from the people are saying that teachers are reaching out and saying they want to go back.
Okay.
nobody's reached to me and said they wanna go back, so I don't know. You may hear that, I've not heard that, so. And what I'm gonna say is, you know, this is not a, there's not a board action for us to take. And I'd like to, I mean, ask, what's your recommendation? Is that, is a committee, the group that looked at it, is that their recommendation?
The way that I looked at it, I mean, we've talked about it, as far as technology, I think it would help them to go soft launch. As far as curriculum, I think it would help them to go soft launch, because they can get their teachers going in the curriculum. As far as what is best for the kids, I think the option of coming to school versus, you know, staying at home, that they need that option. So you're weighing the difference of, and what y'all said is true. If you don't want to come, you don't have to come. But then if you have 40% of your kids come, you're gonna have your teachers that are gonna have to be providing instruction to those kids. But if people are reaching out saying they're ready, you know, teachers are ready to come back, then to me, that would be a given if they're ready to come back. I've heard a few say yes, a few say no. Mine's kind of split down the middle. You know, mine's kind of split down the middle. Is the input. And I think the safety measures, that's a big thing for the teachers, just knowing we are going to have those safety measures in place, you know, and once they can see it. And, you know, it would be fine if we opened the school on the 20th and only 20% of the kids came back and 80 went virtual. That's fine too, that they had that choice. But then we could, you know, I think it will gradually pick up. I think more will come unless we spike. And right now the numbers are going down. Instead of going up, they're going down. So.
It's kind of hard decision to make, you know, when you're looking at.
Speaking to your mic, Johnny.
What's that?
Speaking to
To
your
the mic.
microphone.
Sorry. I said it's kind of hard decision to make.
It is.
Because in one way, you want your children back in the school. You want them having that emotional connection. You know, a physical view of someone. You know, the teacher and student, or friend of friend. Knowing they're there. And virtually, that's hard to do. Or, and I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's hard to do. But on the flip side of that, you know, the virtual side, if you look at a distant learning, that's going to be harder for our younger children to do. So it's kind of a two-edged sword. And when I look at the virtual part of it, is the learning part of it. I know our teachers are fantastic. I know they can teach. But a distant learner like that, I don't know if they're going to grasp everything that's there.
There's too much
You know,
distraction. When you come to school, it's pretty great for you. You're at home and you're trying to do that. You're all distracted.
but there's, you know, they can be at home or at school. You know, that it's how they prepare the mental state. You know, what they're going to tackle that day, what's going to be presented to them that day. Either way, you know, the virtual or in school. It's how that child is going to process that information and retain that information. And like I said, it's not an easy decision to make.
It's not.
So, but I know we're at a time at hand where a decision has to be made.
We gotta make decisions we don't want to do. And we could make the decision, okay, we're gonna open up, in 2 weeks hit a spike, and the health department says you're not
That's-
opening up. I mean, what we make tonight could change if someone above us comes and changes it.
Correct, and I understand that, and I understand it's been a roller coaster.
Yeah,
You know, like I said, fluid,
very fluid.
because it's the same way in different businesses as well.
Right.
But the one thing I look at it from a positive, if it did start virtual, at least you would have a sampling of how the system will go and how the education will go. If it does have a relash or what, you know, a bounce.
It's
Hope
six
not.
one half dozen
Hope
the
not
other
ever.
though, isn't it? It's six one half dozen the other, because if you go.
That's what I'm saying.
So one of the things that she brought up is that, well, if we go soft launch, well, you're gonna give the IT department extra time. No, you're not. You're putting more pressure on them to get all their stuff here, to get everything deployed, to get everything out. That's not helping anybody on the IT side. Okay? And on the other side of it is, I'm expressing to you, having them in the classroom to understand who you're going to have to teach virtually and who you're going to have to do in face-to-face is going to be our best measurement of what's going to help these kids and the teachers for preparedness for long haul. Not, if you keep on doing a soft tap, soft tap, soft tap, soft tap, when Mike Tyson punches you in your face, you ain't going to be ready for it.
Oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna be around Mike Tyson.
But you can't say that it doesn't help technology if technology is saying 2 weeks helps us.
But
They would know technology better than we would know technology for what they need and what they have to do. So we can't say that it doesn't help
But I
them.
think that what they're saying is that we're allowing them more time to get more technology in and get that technology prepared. If the 100% of the district is going virtual for 2 weeks at the beginning, we're going to have to get those things deployed prior to
Okay.
that.
Well,
not
100% of the
after that.
district's already gone virtual last spring.
But
We've
not
done
with
it.
not with one-to-one technology that we have to get dispatched and deployed.
Okay, but we've done that. It's just a matter of putting the curriculum together and the packets and everything else they gotta get out. It's gonna be a little different communication standpoint. Yeah, maybe a kid has to use their own laptop instead of getting the new Chromebook. There may be some issues, okay? I get that. But if technology, I mean, your superintendent's saying they taught 2 weeks helped them, I don't know that we can say that it doesn't help them. That doesn't make any sense.
The way that it would help them, they can do it. I have no doubt our technology department can do it. If they need to deploy those devices, we did it pretty quickly this last time. We can do it. What it helps them in doing is the teachers on the platforms. If they're doing Seesaw, they're doing Google Classroom, they're doing the Canvas, it helps the teachers who are not accustomed to doing that work with technology in order to learn those platforms and push things out. It also helps them to get the devices in so that they can work to do the one-to-one. Because if this group's sitting in the classroom and this group's virtual, I'm still gonna be teaching you on your device once they're in. Because if you have to go virtual tomorrow, I want you to know how to use that device. So even those kids in the regular classroom, once we get all the devices in, we'll have them in their hands, working on them in the in-person setting as
So
well.
let's roll this back for a second. So we have 5 elementary campuses,
Mhm.
correct?
That's
How
correct.
many students do we have on 5 elementary campuses from pre-K through 5th grade? They're gonna be the most impacted
Yeah.
because they're the ones that are gonna have parent attention.
They are.
And have to be monitored and led through the deal rather than have a teacher who's there in person.
And those kids, you brought up a good point there, pre-K through second, we're gonna have those on iPads. We haven't got those ordered yet. I don't know how long it's gonna take us to get those in.
So what's our head count? We have 6,000 students. About what's our head count for kindergarten, pre-K through 5th grade as far as students? Last
Well,
year's enrollment.
You're talking close to, you got 16, yeah, probably about 50 to 60%, 55% of your kids. So you're gonna have a little over 3,000. Yeah.
What's your point?
Yeah, because I think that it's a lot harder for a pre-K to a 5th grader to learn virtually than to learn in person. I think back to whenever Abby or Taylor's sitting on your lap learning how to read, and you're reading every night with them. When those hours go away from that fun time that you're spending with them to now you're going through a curriculum with them at night whenever you have time to get through that virtual part is going to be difficult to do. And oh, by the way, Mom and Dad, you better log in and do that so that we as a district get counted for the student being present and being able to get those pieces of fun. There's just a lot of things that go away and make things less difficult for everyone by doing face-to-face opposed to virtual. And I think that you'll find more of your virtual people are gonna be
Your secondary.
some of
Some of
your
your secondary.
some of the fifths, but a lot more of your middle school, secondary
I
people.
get what you're saying. We're talking 2 weeks. We're talking the beginning of the school 2 weeks, so they're probably not doing just a whole lot to start with, because you're just getting to know your
You gotta
students.
get acclimated.
You're trying to get acclimated, so I don't know how much of a learning that you lose I mean, you could have 100% of your elementary kids say, we're all going virtual, then what?
So
You're in the same boat.
let me ask the people who've been teachers before. Generally, whenever kids come in, it takes them at least 2 weeks to get into the rhythm of what school is, right?
Yeah.
So by starting on a soft side, aren't we retarding that process? You don't think so? Because most educators, if you ask the teachers, they say even when you come back from Thanksgiving or you come back from spring break or anything like that, it takes you 2 weeks to get back into a rhythm and getting it in the things that we need to get done as far as curriculum is concerned.
Well, if you're asking which is the best delivery of education, for K through 3, it's teacher and student together. I mean, because it's that relationship between those people that help kids learn. And it's a computer is not a person. Even though there may be a person on there talking to you, it's not a person. And so if I had children that needed to go to school, it would scare me to death to send them back to the classroom. But in my heart and in my brain, I would know that that would be the best for them. I don't know if I could do it, but I know it would be the best for them. If I had that option. And I think that's what parents are dealing with. And I think a lot of them know my child would learn better in that classroom, but they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
I would be terrified to send my little kid back to school. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if I could. But if I wanted the best for them education-wise, that's what I would do.
I think most would argue that being in the classroom probably is better for
Yes,
most kids. I mean, there are some
definitely.
kids who can learn virtually just as good as sitting in a classroom with a teacher. No doubt, there are kids built that way. So I don't.
But Dr.
It's a
Shaw,
smaller number.
It is.
do you think that 2 weeks, we're talking right now, K through 5, 2 weeks difference is gonna make that much difference in their school year?
It might it might let some kids know, hey, this is not for me. I can't learn this way. And there are kids who cannot learn
Yes.
from a computer. They just can't do it. And
Yes,
so
they do.
it may, I don't know whether that will be long enough for them to make that kind of decision, but it might be. Because I think they would know pretty quickly, this is not something I would be able to do and learn. I think that might help. It's better than nothing.
Well, they have that sort of virtual table.
Would it help, curriculum department and teachers may have a conniption me saying this, but what if we allowed them to rethink their decision at 2 weeks? If we opened up, but it's told them they're doing a 2-week commitment to either virtual or online versus a 6-week commitment. And over that 2-week period, those that chose to go virtually could see, is it working or is it not working? I mean, that, you're not bound to the option I gave you. You've got leeway to play with that. I mean, you've got leeway that you can say, okay, you could say, I'm gonna do a soft launch for 1 week, if you want to do 1 week. You know, you've got leeway and options to go.
You have a soft launch day one.
Talking to Mike Penny, nobody can hear you.
You have a soft launch day one because they have a
They have
choice
an
to go to
option.
school or not to go to school,
an
day
option.
one.
Do y'all think that I mean, y'all are hearing for the people, I'm not. Do you think that the 6-week commitment is what's getting them, is the fact they're having to, that has no play to it? Okay.
I don't think,
Okay.
I don't think that goes one way or the other.
Okay.
I think that whenever you give the option to have virtual and face-to-face coinciding together, I think it's the best option, because those who want to stay home can stay home,
Exactly.
and those who don't. You just go. In like, I'll say it again, the teachers are going to be better prepared if they know who's coming, and if they have people who peel off and go back to virtual, they're going to know what that looks like, because not everybody's going to jam in there at the beginning.
So it was reduced down to 2 weeks instead of what we're talking about. How is that gonna affect our teachers in preparation?
They're gonna come in on the 10th regardless. And I mean, we hope to have our numbers pretty solid by then of how many we're gonna need that are gonna support virtual, how many are gonna be needed for those that are coming back face to face. So your teachers are going to be prepared because, I mean, they know their curriculum. You know, they know how to do it, they know the devices, and it's gonna be different because, like I said, some of those teachers are gonna have both. If they're the only teacher for that subject, they're gonna be doing virtual and they're going to be doing the in-seat as well, in person as well.
And that's one thing that I have heard from a few of the teachers, that it's very difficult on them. You know, that they're having to do the in-class but also the virtual.
Right. And we're gonna have to support them in that, we know that.
Yes.
We're gonna have to use our pairs, like I said, we're gonna have all hands on deck. It's gonna be a total rethinking, you know. It's what we would like to do is, like, a first grade teacher still has their 22 kids assigned to them. If that kid comes, then they go into that classroom, you know, when they get back. But if we peel off and do some virtual, some like that, it may not be that way. If they go 6 weeks virtual, come back, they'll have a teacher. If they peel off and go back and then that class is full when they come back, I mean, it may be a different teacher, you know.
I definitely think that there are teachers that teaching virtually is just absolutely the last thing in the world they ever want to do.
I would never want to. Of course, I'm adapting to not giving hugs, so.
Well, you know, I have a daughter that teaches, and she says it drives her crazy. She said, because I want to see their eyes, you
Yes.
know, and so it's the last thing, you know, but she doesn't have a choice. I mean,
Right.
she works for UNT, and they're all going virtual, that's it, period. So, but I think that we're giving them a choice. What else can we do?
I know.
I think that's the best thing we could do, is give them a choice.
Day one.
And then UIL comes in and says, well, they don't have to make a choice about participating in extracurricular because they can do it either way.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. I don't think we should punish kids because they're not on campus, if they choose not to be there. I think we ought to give them all the opportunities that we can possibly give them.
2 weeks ago, I might have had a different perspective until CDC launched all their new directives, because they changed gears, you know. In the beginning, I was thinking, we're not coming back. But CDC is now pushing really hard for bringing those kids back. They're pushing hard. So that's why I wanted to give y'all all that information. I mean, they're pushing that hard.
So when do you expect to have this on the website for people to go and view?
As soon as they can load it up, they have it. So they can load it on the website at any time. I shared it with them.
So can we make it very clear for, you know, there's questions on safety, make sure it's highlighted, the safety items. It's clear about the face shield or you know, if they do a face shield, there's a particular type of face shield they have to have. Can any kid wear a face shield? Or is it just for teachers?
Nope, any kid. And it's in there. I didn't cover that, but it is in here. On one of the things that defines the face shield on here.
You understand this is Sharia law face covering.
But it has to cover the mouth and the nose.
The shield does.
Yes. It
There's
has
the
to.
example right there.
Yep. Yep, what he's got on.
Well, there's multiple types of face shields. There's some that you can go sit on your chest and go up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
But they still
200
cover
bucks.
the mouth and the, as long as it covers the mouth and the nose. Let's see. Okay, here it is. On mitigate,
the
it's
dog
on one of those. It says for the purpose
Might
of
have
this
to get mine
document.
back, they'd have on a hazmat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should require that.
There you go. TEA defines it like this. For the
Everybody.
purpose of this document, masks include non-medical grade disposable face mask, cloth face coverings over the nose and mouth, or full face shields to protect eyes, nose, and mouth. Face shields may be superior to cloth face coverings in many circumstances, given improved ability to see, mouth movement, and improved air circulation. So that is in there on the mitigate
Okay.
page, so it is definitely in there.
So we definitely need to get this on, out so they can look at it.
Right.
Can it go out tomorrow?
I can go out tonight. I
It
mean,
needs
I
to
don't
go
know
out
why we can't
tonight.
even, yeah, we
Okay.
can load it up.
Okay,
It's already on digital form, so
Okay.
they just have to load it.
okay.
I lost my train of thought. So we can't take board action on, to say, this is what you're gonna do. You give your input and administration will make their decision on what they,
Yep.
what they choose to do. The, you know, I asked earlier about, the kids who aren't on campus. There was only one district that you reported back that, we're gonna make them be on campus to participate.
Right.
What do you do with kids, since you're saying they have to be there for the period? What do you do for kids that don't have the transportation to do that?
It's their own transportation. That's part of the thing that we put on there. They have to have their own mode of transportation. So if they can't get there and they want to participate, they need to jump on that bus that morning and be there. So they do have to have their own mode of transportation.
Okay.
So we go to
Is that,
school.
is that aligned with our districts that are surrounding us?
Yes.
They have to be there for their athletic period or their CTE period or whatever?
Yes. And then they have to
Okay.
provide their own mode of transportation.
Okay. I think that's all I got on this. Anybody else have any other
Any other input?
questions?
Well, I know there's also parents that have made mention that, you know, you have both, you know, parents working,
Mhm.
and it's very difficult for them to find a daycare that would even accept the child. So, you know, there's, actually the ones I've had discussions with, they really actually want their kids back
Back
in
in
school.
school.
So
I
what
mean, it
about,
helps them out,
Yeah.
but they've also just had discussion about the in-person learning.
Right.
You know, that, the visual, as I stated a while ago.
It's a parental preference. It
Yeah.
really is. Whatever they choose, whatever
Yeah.
they choose. And we're not, like I said, there's gonna be extenuating circumstances. We
Mhm.
say 6 weeks period because those teachers need to know,
Yeah,
you know, but there's going to be those that have to call us and apply for, hey, can I switch because of this or this? And,
sure,
you know, and we're not gonna say no, you know. We're gonna look at those individually, case by case. So. Okay. Anything else? All right, thank y'all.
thank you.
All right. There were nobody signed up for open forum, correct? All right, we're gonna move into our action items. We have the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wants pulled out to review?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
second motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson and a second by Mr. Knight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. Next, we have the consideration and approval of board endorsement of Tasby director candidates in your board packet. You have letters from each individual who are running. There are 4, I believe.
4.
And then I got another letter today from Mr. Carbo, who is from Mesquite ISD, who's actually the city director now, and wishes to seek re-election for the full 3 years. Is there, and we can nominate somebody from our own district if we want to do that, so. Is there anybody that wishes to be a director?
It's a hard no for me.
If not, do we have a recommendation for who to put our votes behind?
From what I read, I mean, Carbo has the most experience. But, I mean, that doesn't always make you better just because you're more experienced. Sometimes
Sure.
people that are coming up in the ranks are also good, but since we don't have a lot to go on other than their questionnaire, basically, he has the most experience. He's been in PTA, he's been on his school board for 24 years. So, like I say, just by what I read, I would go with Carbo.
Okay.
Anybody else like some, or think somebody else is better?
I want to abstain from voting for that, period.
Okay, Melanie, you want to make a motion?
Okay, I move that we approve or endorse, I don't have his first name, Mr. Carbo as Tasby Director Candidate for Position D.
Kevin Carver.
Kevin Carbo as Tasby Director Candidate for Position D.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson, a second by Mr. Sebring to cast our votes for our support towards Mr. Kevin Carbo from Mesquite ISD, who is the current sitting director for another enlistment or another term. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
I don't agree.
So you're voting no?
No.
You're voting no or you're abstaining?
Well, I will prefer to abstain.
Okay. So it passes 5-0
Right.
with one abstention.
Right.
All right, next we have a consideration and approval of official delegate and alternate delegate. This is for our Tasby Fall Festival. Last year, it was Ms. Story was the delegate and I was the alternate delegate. Is there anybody that wishes to be the delegate again? I'm not sure if they're gonna have the Tasby convention, how that's gonna work, but we had the one in the spring, so I guess they'll figure it out with the summer leadership. So I guess they'll figure it out.
Is that the one that was in September in Dallas
Yes.
last year?
Yes.
So we have a delegate that goes and they're part of the assembly. And when they have motions, they get to be part of the voting process. The alternate's there if the delegate can't make it or has to step out. So really, the alternate, you're just getting the free lunch and getting to hang out. It's not a good gig, but it's better than
Yeah.
the alternative. All right. So I need a motion of who wants to be the delegate.
I nominate John Anderson.
Negative. Is there anybody who wants to do delegate? You did it last year. You want to do
I
it
don't
again?
have time.
No?
After what I saw with Tasby, I don't want to participate.
Okay.
I don't have time, brother.
Okay. So Melanie will do the delegate. And I'll do the alternate if nobody wants to be the alternate.
You need to be the alternate.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Because you have to drive.
He'll get his lunch, yeah. It's good.
I worked it last year and I didn't get the hours for working it. So it wasn't a good deal for the alternate. All right. So we have a motion for Ms. Peterson to be the delegate, delegate. Mr. Anderson be the alternate. I'll make that motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Knight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. Consideration and approval of resolution and extension of Mentors Care. This is Mr. Gatewood.
He's in the hallway.
I'll submit the paperwork today, so she can turn it in.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, first of all, hey, thank you guys for your dedication out there watching that via live. I'll tell you what, that's pretty tough. Hey, I want to go ahead and, first of all, thank Board President John Anderson, the school board members, and Superintendent Mrs. Sanford for blessing me with the opportunity to come here and present on the program called Mentors Care. Do you guys mind if I take this here off?
Go right ahead.
Thank you, thank you.
Just make sure you speak loud enough for everybody to hear you on the mic.
Yes, sir, will do.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
As you guys know, we have a significant population of our students that are at risk for failing, homelessness. We have students that have drugs addiction, single parenthood. They have a number of reasons why they're not successful at the high school level. What we've done, we've partnered with Mentors Care, and what they do, they match our at-risk students, our most at-risk students, with mentors from the community. Now, data has suggested those students are very successful when you're matched with a mentor that has that caring relationship, that's personal with them, the one-to-one. They're very successful. And Mrs. Dina Petty, she's going to share some data with you guys tonight based off last year's data, and it was pretty impressive. One being, I don't want to steal her thunder, but one being that 100% of the seniors that are involved in this program were graduates. You can't beat that 100%. That's as good as it gets. I don't want to steal her thunder, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Ms. Dina Petty. She is the president of Mentors Care, so she can get you the data. Come on, Ms. Dina.
Yes, sir, thank you. I think I'll sit right here and just kind of run through the slides.
Okay.
Can they
Or do you
hear?
want me to go
We
up
have a
there?
mic.
Oh,
There's your,
The remote is there to your right.
yes, the clicker's right there.
oh, so I grab this.
Yeah.
Oh, got it, sorry.
It was previously sanitized.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for allowing me to be here. This will be our third year coming up. Unfortunately, I had missed the last 2 years of presenting personally, but I allowed Sean Byers, who did a great job, who's actually our coordinator on campus, present for us. And I know he's done a great job, but he's on vacation. He's actually on the highway, so here I am. And I finally get to meet all of you, so thank you for letting me be here. I am going to run through this pretty quickly, but I did want to let you know the whole reason I began this program 11 years ago, this will be my 12th year, is because I was considered at risk. I was actually a kid that was homeless. I lived in my car. And a lot of people, when they met me, they would never know. And so I have such a heart for this. I believe in this. I was the kid that was lost, sat by myself every day at school. Nobody knew the situation at home. And I think that's a lot of our stories of our kids. But they're all full of potential. And like the principal said, you know, there is so much data to prove that it really truly works when you have one person meeting with one person. And we're very intentional. We make sure that we do not waste anybody's time. We're not wasting the school's time. We're not wasting the mentor's time. And the student is there for a purpose and a reason. And it is just to talk about them first, wanting to graduate from high school, the importance of it. Then we talk about how do they be successful as a person, and we have talking points. We have curriculum, 4 years of curriculum for the students that's been written for them. And they go over those every week, and they start talking about the things like showing up is half the battle, or giving 120% when no one's looking. We can't assume these kids are learning this at all at home. We don't know. But I would say 90% of our kids across the board in all the schools we serve, I would say about 90% have little to no support at home. And that's why they're considered at risk. And then we have a lot of state indicators that prove that, you know, they're probably on a trajectory that may not be successful in school. So we grab them in high school before they leave here, and we hope that they buy into education, they buy into what it takes to be a successful person, And then we start talking about, what do you see yourself doing in the future? What are your gifts and talents? And we start getting them excited about the future. And for a lot of our kids, it's the first time they really get to talk about their future. It scares them to death at first, and then they get excited about it. So it's really pretty amazing. So who we are a nonprofit, 501c3. We do all the recruiting. We go find all these great mentors from the community. And we have, on average, 50 to 60 adults that come into all the high schools that we serve. And so that's serving 50 to 60 students. And it's pretty amazing when you see these connections happen. And we do all of our due diligence to make sure these are great people that have gone through the background checks that match the school. We do references. We have a great training program for them. We train them in the beginning. And then we also have a training in January, in winter, to kind of encourage them to understand the students that they're working with. Like last year, we talked about resilience. Why a lot of our students really fail to have resilience is because they've had trauma. And so it's learning how to deal with your kiddos. These are some of the schools that we serve. We're in 7 high schools now. We're continuing to grow. We are looking at going into the JJAEP, which would also affect Red Oak. And so they've asked us as part of the contract that we be there. So we're talking to the judges now. We're pretty excited about that as well. Why do we need mentors? Here's just a few things. One of the things that I wanted to point out here is extracurricular. A lot of our kids are not involved in extracurricular because, one, they don't have the support at home, or they don't have the grades or the money. It takes a lot. And so what we do is we find that, oh, sorry, did I not hit it? Thank you. I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. We find that they get kind of lost. And so when they find out, okay, there is somebody that really cares and is really pointing them, then they want to buy into school and be active. And we have seen a lot of that. And it's pretty exciting when you see them get involved. And this is going to be Red Oak. This is where we are right now. We did graduate 12 of our seniors, which was 100% of our seniors. So excited about that. We had some amazing stories come out of it. One of them I do want to share with you very quickly. I know it's late and y'all are tired, but this is really good. So this was a kiddo that was, he was in juvenile detention. He came back to school. And he had little or no contact with family. He was having a hard time. Well, come to find out, that the counselor did an amazing job of talking with the student to find out what was going on. The story is that he had got arrested for selling drugs. And the reason he was selling drugs, and he told the counselor, he said, I was selling drugs. I don't do drugs. I don't really believe in it, but it was the only way I knew to raise money for my mom who had cancer. And the mother died of cancer while he was in juvenile detention. So he came back to the counselor. And it was such a great thing that we're there as that extra layer to help the school. I mean, this was a kiddo that needed a lot of help, a lot of direction. Got him a great mentor. He's graduated and he's going to school. So going on to technical school. He's doing great. So that's kind of a great, if you want to go to our website, mentors.care, we actually have a story up there so you can read it. So powerful, so powerful. So 87% maintained or progressed in credits. You know, it's all about the credits. They got to have the credits to graduate, and so we're pretty excited about that. Remember, these are all the kids considered at risk of not graduating, so they have a track record of not getting their credits done. So it's, you know, moving them into believing that they need to get their work done. And then 76% maintained or improved attendance, which is big. So of the 62 students that were considered at risk of not graduating high school that were in our program this past year at Red Oak, these are some of the things that we were dealing with. 17% had addictions. 21% we were able to refer to community assistance. That's what we do. We're kind of the social worker on campus. We connect them to all the help that's available. 17.7% were in alternative school. We had 14.5% of parents incarcerated. That's actually a new at-risk indicator with TEA, which I find amazing. We've actually had that one forever because that's a big one. You know, when their parents are incarcerated, they automatically are at risk. And then we had 3.23% that were in Hawk success, which is awesome. And then we had 5.43% of our students that are considered homeless. Now, that's not with the state or with the city, because their indicators for homelessness is that they have to be living under a bridge Well, that's actually only like 2 or 3 people in the county of Ellis County. But we consider them homeless because they're at any moment, they're sleeping on somebody's sofa. We call them sofa surfers. They stay with friends, but at any moment they could be in trouble. So we consider them homeless. And then Sean Byers was amazing, is amazing, and he'll be coming back. And he was the coordinator here, and this was just a story about one of his students. It's in your packet, just another testimonial. There are so many testimonies. Please go to the website and you can read some of these. They're kind of amazing. We do an exit interview with our students and our mentors just to get a gist of how things are going. And if you take the best and you take the worst off, you're going to have a really good, 100% everybody's happy. And it's been a really great thing. I do want to talk about COVID, just like everybody else. I know it affects everybody. How do you mentor when you believe in one-to-one mentoring, face-to-face? Well, we put into action very quickly when all this happened that we started mentoring using texting and emails. That was hard. Kids don't email. We found that out pretty quick. They don't like it. But we did use a template that we sent out to the mentor to get to the students whatever way that they could, and texting seemed to be the way to go. We didn't want to do the video yet until we could figure out confidentiality, so we didn't do that. But every week we were sending the students information for assistance for them during this time. So we referred a lot of students to counseling that was available. Some of it was free, it was telecounseling. We had a lot of depression. Over the summer, we've actually had some suicide attempts, so they're really having a hard time. I really think it's one of the most important times to have mentoring than ever right now with everything that's going on, because they're very isolated. And some of the kids that are at home, it's not a good thing. So they need that connection to their mentor. So during the time, I don't know if that video is working. You got it set up? That's awesome. This was during COVID and how our mentors were keeping up. Thank you for making that work. That's awesome. So we had, just here at Red Oak, we had almost 1,200 communications. That means mentors and students during that time from March into the end of school, which is big. So we kept pushing and pushing. And some of those seniors, you just wanted to make sure they were doing those last minute work to make sure they were going to graduate. We did have to chase a few of them, but we got them, and they graduated, so that was big. So 82% mentor participation and 52% student response. So that's the way it is. But moving forward for 2021, I'm sorry, I forgot this. This is what we're looking at for 2021. We do have, I know that this is still fluid and still trying to figure some things out, but we're going to make it work. And we're working with Microsoft 365 and Teams, and we're going to be able, we're moving to the video, but we have it so it's HIPAA compliant to make sure that the videos are going to be only linked by the coordinator making it happen with the student and the mentor, and they're documenting it, and they also video record it, and they put it up in the cloud. So we'll have it. So if anything is accused or whatever. And we're also looking at putting something behind them, like a beach scene or whatever, so that there's privacy as well, which I think will help. So, and then if we're going to be at the school, of course, we'll do all the social distancing that we need to do, and all of our mentors will be ready for that as well. So basically, that is it for our year. I want to do this real fast so we don't take too much of your time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And is there any questions or anything I can explain?
No, it is a good program. I mean,
Yes.
I've done it the last 2 years. I had 2 seniors. The first senior, a little close, but he did make it. Did move on. He joined the Army. And last year, he looked forward the whole time when I told him that, if you can make this thing happen. And he did all the work, I'm going to tell you. All he wanted me to do was just be there, pushing, and know that if he had a problem, he had somebody to talk to. That's all he wanted me to do. He didn't want me to do anything else. And when I told him that, if you finish, I'll be the one handing you your diploma.
Oh, wow.
And he had a hard time with that concept at first, and he finally grasped it. Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to give him his diploma because we were, because of social distancing. But when I watched him walk up, this is tough kid and spent some time in places he shouldn't have. He had this big grin on his face, and he was excited. He was excited about graduating, and I thought that was all worth it. Just to watch that. So
it is.
It is a good program, and Sean does a great job for us.
Thank you very much.
So the applications are on your website?
They are actually we have on our website how you can contact us. It's info@mentors.care. It comes to me, and then I'll direct it to Sean, or you can email Sean directly here at the school. Yeah, tell everybody we need more. So.
But they're all listening to you online right now.
Oh, awesome. Yes, we need you. Yeah, we're very excited about being here. Thank you all so much for the support.
We appreciate all that you poured into this.
Thank you
We're
so much.
very grateful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know it's a powerful program. Our youth minister has been involved, so, and just hearing what goes on, because I fully understand.
It changes lives forever.
Yeah.
And we've watched it so many times over and over again. You try to tell the story and you just can't. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I love how people that mentor, they get so much out of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids, they really do bond with their mentors. They love their mentors. It's an important thing. I would have given anything when I was in school to have something like this.
Yes.
I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about it. We got to not only keep it going, keep growing. There's so many other kids out there that need it. So.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Yeah.
Kemp.
It's not so good in your life in making something wonderful.
That's
from
exactly
this.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you very much.
You guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we extend enter into the 1-year extension of the original contract with Mentors Cares dated on June 20th, 2018.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Knight, second by Mr. Sebring. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. Next, we have the consideration and approval of designation of hazardous routes. Mr. Frills, is he here? Okay.
Sign in the hall. There he is.
There's the legend.
I haven't sanitized that yet.
Do I?
I'm gonna
We have to sanitize the clicker.
Take your mask off so we can hear you.
First thing is, for me, is the designation of hazardous routes. That's the same thing we do every year.
Yeah.
To designate the hazardous routes for the buses, and of course, when new streets are added, we've had to bring this to you in the middle of the year too. So, we've got all the current streets on. It's just a formality that we do every year so we can make sure that we acquire funding.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the resolution and list of hazardous routes for the 2020-21 school year.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson and a second by Dr. Shaw. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. Consideration and approval of Red Oak High School lighting project contingency funds.
Yeah, the lighting project is going really well. If you remember, we saved money on this because we didn't use an architect. We did this in-house. Corrigan was kind of held my hand through some of this, but they didn't do it. They're not charging us 6% of the total project, and we can do that because FSG has engineers. Well, there has been a couple of things that we've run into, and we didn't put any contingency funds in this contract on the front end. Normally for a new construction, they put 3%. For a retrofit or a renovation, they put 5%. And we did not put any contingency funds in this project, and we've run into a couple of issues. Encore, we've got to do everything to qualify for the rebate. We can't cut any corners. You know where I'm going with this? One of the things was they changed midstream. We went from a 35 watt bulb, and it had to be a 30 watt bulb. And in the lecture hall, those of you who've been in the lecture hall, there's that big console that runs. It's got a label on it. The plans said one thing. When they dug in, guess what? It wasn't what was in the plans for some things. So therefore, we've run into some costs, a few costs. I'm asking for what, $32,000 as you see? 35,000. I got the bid back the other day. It's like 26 something right now.
Good.
And the flip side of that is right now they're projecting the day they turn around, they're gonna bring us a check for 30,000.
Ooh.
So,
So cover the cost.
yeah, another thing that came up with, there was the lights in the bathroom, they had to do some bartering with Encore to get the rebates, and then there were 7 light poles that are on by the practice field that go to the road. Originally, the plans, we thought those were on the field house, because you remember, those were there first.
Yeah.
They're not, they're on the high school. So we had to add those back in. All the ones that go all the way to Louise Ritter up that road. And so it's just little stuff like that. It's nothing on their part. The pack is gonna be a bear here in the next couple of weeks, but I wanna see them. They've already, it's amazing. Those lights are amazing. The gym lights are amazing.
Good.
And like I said, we don't have to do anything but call them if something goes out for 5 years.
Yay.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to worry about all the ballasts, you don't have to worry about
Nothing.
all of that stuff. That goes.
These lights are this thin.
I actually converted my shop to LED, and it makes a big, big
Yeah,
difference.
they're this thin. The lighting in the gym alone, they showed me we were in there when they were putting them in. One of the old bulbs, one of those old halogen bulbs put off more heat than all these LED lights in the gym.
Mhm.
Oh,
So it'll reduce our energy cost, and that's not even figured into the lighting. But when you take the heat, that all that stuff that's not even figured in.
wow.
So.
Well,
it's pretty amazing.
just like these ballasts produce so much heat,
Mhm.
you know, that they will actually score the paint.
Yeah, oh yeah, on those old metals, you see it, they turn yellow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm a big believer in the LED conversion. that, I think, I don't know how long our ROI will be, but, you know, our rate of return, but,
Well, it's projected right now at less than 6 years.
wow,
Wow, excellent.
wow.
That's what they're right at right now.
Well, that's impressive.
And then, like I said, the $30,000 we're gonna get back right at the front end of this. If we get everything fixed and they can do everything, then they'll sign off on it.
That's great.
Okay, entertain a motion?
I move that we approve contingency funds not to exceed $35,000 to the Facilities Solutions Group proposal to complete the lighting project.
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson and a second by Mr. Knight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. Consideration and approval of Student Code of Conduct 2021.
Well, until this morning, there were no changes in the code of conduct. Until you see the one sheet of paper there that's come up.
Should be an extra sheet.
Yeah. It's
It's
two
so
things
good.
were added because of COVID. And you can see where they're going to fit in. With this being a non-legislative year, there was no big changes. But this is one that's being recommended by Tasby and our attorneys because of all that's going on. One is just mistreatment of others. Students shall not engage in behavior that threatens the health of others by intentionally coughing, sneezing, or spitting in a manner which appears to spread COVID-19 to others. This action may be considered a form of assault in accordance with the Texas Penal Code.
Absolutely.
I think there was a big news story about this morning, I heard. And then the safety transgression, students shall not refuse to wear a face covering pursuant to the guidelines. Our ISD is required to comply with the governor's executive order and/or additional orders issued future regarding the wearing a face covering to the nose and mouth when appropriate. That is just basically covering us that we're telling them you're supposed to do that. And there are they can give exceptions and that sort of thing. So it's just illegal.
No.
So how do you foresee enforcing the first one? If it can be an assault.
Well, it depends who they sneeze on or cough on or whatever.
Absolutely not. You have words like intentionally, how do you prove that? You have words like appears, how do you prove that? And you've got a penal code.
I'm not the district attorney.
I understand, but I'm just saying in general, those words are very
But
dangerous.
if you don't have something, then, you know,
Absolutely
they're
not.
free will to do, you know, spit on somebody or cough on somebody intentionally. You know, where you don't have anything in there to
How
cover
do
you.
you know it's intentional?
Come on.
High school kid is pretty, you know, it's pretty.
There's-
sometimes.
I'll say, I don't recall ever coughing on anybody my entire life. I'd have to try.
Well,
I've
Yeah,
seen boys
there's-
do it all the time.
Yeah, they say.
Yeah, but just being a jerk.
So,
But that's what I'm saying,
But-
it would be under.
so has that? I know we're put it into. Has it been discussed? What? I know you're looking at having a new police chief, so maybe
no way.
you know let that person come on board and then they can make a determination. But I'd like to know more from a district standpoint.
Consequence?
Well,
Yeah, well, how are we gonna do
we're
that?
not, an assault, we will not be able to file a charge. The district won't be able to file a charge. It'll have to be the victim. The other party will file.
And that's, and I
Okay,
agree
so-
with that. That's their right.
That's their right to do that.
So what's the
Well, they have
What-
that right.
from the
whether
district
they do
standpoint,
this or
what-
not.
what does that say the district can do? If a kid spits on somebody else, what is that?
Well, then it depends on we gotta ask the 4 questions again.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's the law, Mr. Wilson.
Absolutely no. No way.
And it's just
The
depends.
problem with that is, I mean, we're saying this is it's pretty black and white what we can do, but it's gonna be all over the place. One person, we're gonna do this to that kid. Another person, we're gonna do this to this kid.
Yeah,
Another
this-
person gonna do this to the kid. So, I mean, that drives me crazy that
Yes.
we have no, or very little consistency with our discipline. Because every kid, I understand you have to look at their situations, I get that, but
But no, we're not gonna be able to get the assault charge.
I'm not talking about assault. I'm not talking
No,
about
that's
assault.
what this is written of.
It's, You're talking penal codes for children in school.
Okay, but, so an individual could file assault charges if they choose to.
They can do that without this.
Sure, but what about what about the kid that says, I don't want to wear a face shield or a face?
It's, you have to handle that through the dress code.
Okay, what are we gonna do? We make them go virtual?
We can if they continue, if they become insubordinate.
Okay, and this
Without
says it
reason.
applies to a governor's order. When the governor changes, what
Well,
happens?
And what it keeps saying, and they're also the,
Any additional orders?
oh yeah, any additional orders. And it says-
So that would automatically change?
Yeah, then
when the-
it would stay in here, the language wouldn't change because
Yeah.
the governor's order would be gone or whatever. But it says face covering when appropriate too. We're not talking about when they're outside and all that kind of stuff. It's when appropriate.
So do you see that as a permanent, something we live in there? Or?
I hope when COVID goes away, that's out of there. Both
Okay.
of those.
So why put them in?
Why put them in? Because it's a
Because we're gonna have
we
that
have to
problem, we
use
have to
it.
address it.
advice and legal.
Sorry.
All right, so we have a motion.
I move that we approve the 2020 through 2021 Student Code of Conduct as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson and second by Dr. Shaw. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Opposed?
Passes 5-1. Consideration and approval of amended 2021 school year calendar. Mr. Cruz.
Y'all talked about that enough tonight, probably. We, remember we met in June and we moved it back to the 13th and then with all, the pandemic was boiling again and so we're coming to you tonight to move it back to officially from the start date from August 13th back to Thursday, August 20th. And this calendar still allows us to bank up 8 days to meet the minimum required minutes. I will tell you that there's a possibility we may have to look at October because we have the parent conference day and the fair day, which is no more. So that is something, we're not bringing a recommendation tonight for the simple fact that if I can look 3 months in the future, I'm not going to be here next week. We just may have to address that in the August board meeting or at a special, just depending on what's going on at the time.
Okay.
But the fair is, because Columbus Day is the 12th, is a holiday for most parents.
All right.
We've always done it on our designated fair day. And the other part of that is the parent-teacher conference. That's going to be an interesting, how we do that also. And that was, if you remember, that was around homecoming.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Well,
That's
that-
homecoming.
That's going to all be changed.
Okay.
So there's likelihood that we may have to address some of that, those 2 days in October later on down the road.
So can we address it sooner than later so they can,
Well, we'd have to do it in August.
they can plan, do it before?
Well, we do it in August.
Okay.
I mean, or, well, yeah, we don't have a choice. We'd have to do it the August board meeting.
Okay. All right.
But by then, we should have a UIL schedule. That's the main thing.
I like aligning with the parents.
Yeah, on the 12th, that was one of the things that brought to my attention real quick, that that's actually Columbus Day now.
Yeah.
So if we're not gonna have a fair day, why don't we move it to Columbus
Sure,
Day?
yeah.
Most of the
Good.
Or stuff
Sounds
before.
good.
Okay, we have a motion?
I move that we approve the amended calendar for the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Peterson, and a second by Mr. Sebring. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 6-0. That's all of our action items. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Hope you feel better. You have information items in the back of your packet that you can refer to. Is there anything else, Ms. Sanford, that you want to highlight or talk about? All right, so I have 9:47. The board will adjourn in the closed session pursuant to multiple Texas government codes as listed on the agenda. All right, I have 10:42 PM. We'll reconvene into open session. Are there any actions to be taken?
No actions, just announcement. I'll be announcing the in-person option tomorrow and giving further guidelines on the return to school. And it is, our PowerPoint is live on the website at this time, so anyone that wants to view that PowerPoint and get those links, it's live.
10:43, and this meeting is adjourned.